It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett here alongside Ben Troop. Glad to be with you. We'll have Kevin Thomas here with us shortly, maybe in a segment or two, but a busy show today, Ben. Obviously a ton of college football talk to get to, and really excited about our guest today. We're going to talk some Miami football coming up in about 30 minutes with Hurricane legend Darren Smith. Won 2 national titles at the U. Oh, by the way, won 2 Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys and played with Mario Cristobal, the new head coach at the University of Miami. So we'll chat with Darren Smith coming up in about 30 minutes. You will have Troop Talk today, Ben, with it being Wednesday, with one of the great defensive linemen in Miami history, another Hurricane legend, Kennard Lang. You will sit down with him in the final hour of the show. Looking forward to that. Also with news in the transfer portal on the coaching front, Chris Gordy from the Locked On SEC podcast will join us, a starting quarterback from the SEC in the transfer portal. So we'll get to that as we move through on the show. Also, Colin Lacey of the Georgia Southern Sports Network will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the recent hires announced by Georgia Southern. What is this Eagle offense going to look like under Clay Helton and Brian Ellis as the offensive coordinator? So a lot coming your way today on the show. But Ben, wanted to recognize some of the all-time great players in the history of college football by referencing the College Football Hall of Fame. Last night, you had the classes of 2020 with COVID, obviously, and 2021 officially inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. There's a long list of honorees, but players from the 2020 class include Lomas Brown, Eric Crouch, Eric Dickerson, Glenn Dorsey, E.J. Henderson, the late Steve McNair, David Pollock, of course, from Georgia. Players from the 2021 class include Carson Palmer, Tony Romo, one of my personal favorites, C.J. Spiller from Clemson, Darren Sproles, Al Wilson. So last night, the College Football College Football Hall of Fame, I should say, was able to officially induct the 2020 and 2021 honorees, and been just a really impressive list, and a couple of guys you played with.
Yeah, BJ, when you start talking about college football royalty, there's a difference in having a great season. There's a difference in having a great moment and being one of the greatest to ever do it. Lomas Brown, you talk about I think he's the 12th Florida player to ever be inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame. You know, a long line of great offensive line, but he's one of the best to ever do it. Eric Crouch, who won the Heisman in 2001, BJ, over Rex Grossman. Eric Dickerson and what he meant to the SMU program, even college, NFL Hall of Famer as well. Glenn Dorsey, I know that's a sour taste in Kevin's heart, BJ, wanting to get Glenn Dorsey back in that draft, ended up getting Matty Ice. I think it worked out great for both parties. E.J. Henderson, man, I had the privilege, I want to say, of playing against him in 2001 in the Orange Bowl. In the Orange Bowl. And then obviously, Steve McNair, man, may he rest in peace. I think, BJ, we started talking about the greatest single rushing seasons ever. I think Barry Sanders in that group. When you talk about the greatest season statistically as for a quarterback, check out Steve McNair's senior year, man. That's all I'm going to say, but I got a chance to play with him in the pros. David Pollard, 3-time. Now, the SEC, I got to call y'all out real quick. They say, 3-time, first team All-SEC. What about 3-time first team All-American? Like, BJ, I'm not going to do what you think I'm going to do. David Pollard is one of the greatest to ever do it, bar none. Blessed enough to play against him. Carson Palmer and Tony Romo and C.J. Spiller. I don't know how many people grew up a Reggie Bush fan. Well, y'all might want to go and check out C.J. Spiller, who is now the current running backs coach at Clemson, by the way.
I have a C.J. Spiller story where I've been fortunate enough throughout my career to cover a lot of great players in person. And it's always really neat when you get to watch a Lamar Jackson or Johnny Manziel. You remember those opportunities. And I went to an ACC championship game, covered it. This is, 15 years ago, however long it was. It was actually in Tampa, and the ACC championship game was Georgia Tech and Clemson. Georgia Tech won the game. C.J. Spiller was named the game MVP. And I think that was just kind of a reflection of how dynamic he was, how good he was, that he played in a game where a lot was on the line, a league championship. His team lost, and he was still named game MVP. I think he had 4 rushing touchdowns, some big plays on special teams. So you look at the players that do it all for their team. C.J. Spiller, one of the best to ever do that.
A guy on this list, Al Wilson, Tennessee, one of the great linebackers of Tennessee history. But Darren Sproles, when people talk about being an innovator, innovators, they innovate. Pioneers, they pioneer. They get trailblazers, they trailblaze. Talk about a guy in Darren Sproles. BJ, Okay, he's not the biggest guy you ever seen, but you put him on that field, and I'm not even talking about what he meant to the teams he played for in the National Football League. Darren Sproles, one of the greatest to ever do it. Darren Sproles is a guy that, at Kansas State, flat out got it done. Running the football, catching the football, special teams, and obviously, I think he might be 2 years removed from retiring in the National Football League. But when you talk about this group, BJ, I think the one thing that sets this group apart is the fact that there is sometimes you hear somebody might have made an All-American list or an All-Conference team. You say, how did he get in? There are no question marks on this list. Eric Crouch, when you talk about what he did in Nebraska, man, people started talking about the fact that, hey, Tommy Frazier was the greatest I've ever seen run that option. But then Eric Crouch came through, and whoop, Eric Crouch was Johnny Manziel without throwing the football. That's the best way to describe him. Like, he wasn't a thrower of the football, but you knew what he was going to do, went out there, flat out, and got it done. David Pollack, what can't you say? 3 years, 3 years, a 3-time first-team All-SEC, three-time All-American.
I think he's in the conversation for greatest defensive player, SEC, defensive player SEC history.
And Steve McNair. Most of these guys you're going to hear, Tennessee, Florida, Maryland, Kansas State, Alcorn State. So when you start thinking about what a guy like Deion Sanders is doing right now for the HBCU circuit, what Coach Pugh is doing for South Carolina State, what Eddie George is doing for Tennessee State, the guy that put some of the greatest players ever came through the NFL, obviously came through college, but to think about Steve Air McNair, Mac9, went to Alcorn State with the 3rd overall pick in the draft, got drafted by the Houston Oilers. I mean, BJ, you know this. You expect to hear Nebraska, Florida State, Miami, 3rd overall pick, Alcorn State. And for those who think, how good was he in the pros? Co-MVP with Peyton Manning. So it's not like he didn't get it done on every area, but from the 2020 class, 2021 class, congratulations to all you guys, because number one, you didn't just come through the college ranks. You was one of the greatest, and you will be enshrined forever. Shout out to everybody who made the list. And even if you were a finalist that didn't make it, congratulations to you as well. But yeah, man, that is a star-studded list, BJ.
And I think about David Pollack. I know you competed against him. I think about just the moments, right? The interception, fumble, whatever it was.
That'll never happen. That'll never happen again.
That's one of the greatest plays ever that we saw him make against South Carolina. You think about, I know you talked about playing and having to block him, and just he never quit. Was always after you. Was always going. Was a guy that would get leverage and just go. David Pollack, I believe, started his career out as a fullback in Georgia, and then ends up being a 3-time first-team All-American.
Kind of not the same, but kind of like DJ Williams at the UBJ. I think he started off at fullback.
Okay.
Ended up going to linebacker. Think about that. So you start off at fullback. What did he end up doing? Being a 3-time first-team All-SEC, 2-time, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, first-team All-American. But listen, I got to play against EJ. I got to play EJ Henderson, Maryland. I got to play against David Pollack. Heard about Lomas Brown, obviously played during the same time as a guy like Eric Crouch. That's what I like the most about my career. It's not about what I did individually. I shared the same field with these dudes. And when you get to see them later on in life, they say, yeah, man, I remember you this, that, and the third. That's the greatest thing, BJ. It's to be acknowledged by your peers. That's all you can really ask for. You don't decide how your career is viewed. You don't even decide the result. You just go out there and give the best you can. But David Pollack, when I think about what a football player is, effort, talent, energy, enthusiasm, impact, he did it all. If Georgia needed to play, he made one. Go back to that South Carolina game and BJ, we always saying who's the best athletes. Is the soccer players, baseball players. Sorry, y'all not in the discussion. Basketball players, the football players. Go look at what David Pollack contorted his. To this day.
Yeah, it was.
How in the world can a person? I know everybody gonna say the craziest thing they ever seen might have been the one-handed catch by Odell Beckham on Monday night against Dallas. No, Odell Beckham's not even 200 pounds. Just imagine that. Imagine a 260-pound guy picking it off, contorting his body. To this day, that quarterback is like, what? What just and the ref was like, dude, that's a touchdown. Not only was it a touchdown, it was a sack /touchdown /pick. It is a play for the ages, BJ. But shout out to the 2020 and the 2021 College Football Hall of Fame inductees and in a very, very prestigious class.
Yeah, some great football players on that list. And again, the College Football Hall of Fame able to honor the class of 2020 and class of 2021. ESPN has announced their All-American team for this season. Some Georgia Bulldogs on the list. We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this What day is it? Wednesday. I'm losing my mind here. You get on the sidetrack on phone calls there for a second, but good to be here on the show. Glad you're with us. The ESPN All-American team is out. Of course, Bryce Young is the first-team All-American quarterback. That probably pretends with what we might see on Saturday night with the Heisman Trophy presentation upcoming. Also, Brock Bowers, Jordan Davis, and Nakobe Dean making first-team All-American there for ESPN. And former Georgia linebacker Jermaine Johnson, who transferred to Florida State, makes it as a first team. So you had a lot of Georgia players and a former Georgia player making it their first-team All-America.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the talent in Athens is at an all-time high. But Ben, I wanted to get your thoughts on Brock Bowers, because this is a guy that I don't know that the expectations back in the preseason were that this true freshman tight end is going to be your go-to receiving option late in the year. Seems to have just a great feel for finding seams and coverages. Very athletic guy. I know you and Christian did a video breakdown a couple of weeks back of him basically catching a fly route and running away from defensive backs. But for a true freshman to be out there putting up Mackey Award type numbers, I know a lot of Dog fans were mad he wasn't named a finalist for the award, but what makes this young guy so special?
Ooh, I think he's gifted. I think sometimes, BJ and Kevin, we too often the time want to put everybody in the same category because they play the same position as a lot of guys throughout college football. You said it, BJ. He's doing this as a true freshman. Most guys take him a year, 2 years, and sometimes for me 4 years to pick up the college football game, the terminology, the speed, just understanding how getting open in college football is a science to it. It's more than just that he's fast and he's quick. They put him in a position to catch the ball in the open field to show off his athleticism. I go back to Darnell Washington, right? Darnell Washington on the goal line. They're like, hey man, why would they throw it right now? Well, you can't coach 6'6". Total is 6 feet. But the thing about Brock Bowers is we talk about people's significance to their team. BJ, I know me and you want to go back to, we always go back to the notion of DeAndre Hopkins, right? Versus Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp plays in the slot, but it's effectiveness. How effective are you? This is how I look at effectiveness. Yards per catch, touchdowns. People say because we talked to Sean Quinn, who's now with Virginia Tech, former Savannah State head coach. He said, if you're not affecting the scoreboard, I mean that's a bunch of yards. Brock Bowers has double-digit touchdowns. Brock Bowers, they knew going into the SEC championship game, we gotta stop him. Couldn't do it. So what makes him special is, man, I mean he has gifts. You can't coach for speed. You can't coach being special with the ball in your hand. That catch that he had to extend that drive, he is draped with 3 or 4 Alabama Crimson Tide defenders around him. He still caught it, and he understands what he means to the offense. The hardest thing to do in college football is to carve out a role for yourself and excel in it. He's done both. I've carved out a role for myself because all 3 tight ends play. He is not a blocker by no strand. And Kevin, you know this too. Nobody's Brock Bowers is a mauler. No one cares if a tight end is a mauler as a blocker, because if it's 3rd and 6 and he can't catch it, you go, the same thing we applaud you for, we also come back and give you some criticism for. But Brock Bowers, I mean, dare I say, if you SEC defenses, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, you're going to have to deal with this young man for years to come because he's this good as a true freshman. I just hope he never, ever gets injured, man. I love what he's doing, regardless if he's wearing the red and black. Shout out to Brock Bowers, man, finding a way to get it done in a very, very crowded, because when you say All-America, that's every tight end in college football, not just the SEC. Shout out to that young man.
Well, Kevin, there are a couple of things, Ben, that you mentioned that stand out to me about Bowers, okay? Not only is he Georgia's leading receiver, he's Georgia's leading receiver by a wide margin. Bowers has 47 receptions on the year. The number 2 receiver for Georgia, Ladd McConkey, has 28. So you have almost 20 more receptions than anybody else on the roster. And I think the 2 stats that you referenced, Ben, are 2 that stand out to me as well. I love the catches. I love the yards. But what are you doing when the football is in your hands? And what are you doing in the red zone? And right now, Brock Bowers is averaging 16.8 yards per catch. That is absurd. I mean, if you don't have a frame of reference, that's normally what maybe the top 4 or 5 receivers in the country average. If you can get up over
not a
15,
John Mackey finalist,
which is hard to understand, but if you
nonsense,
if you get up over 15, certainly 16 yards per carry. You're talking about, or catch, you're talking about probably being a first-round draft pick at wide receiver. And then can you get in the zone? I know at the next level, Ben, you've talked about Kyle Pitts. And, hey, for him to take that next step, you got to do it in the red zone. Brock Bowers has 11 touchdown catches. That's more than twice the number that anybody else on the roster has. So the value he has in this scheme, the trust he has with his quarterbacks that's invented, clearly Todd Monken is designing plays to get him the ball right away as a true freshman. I mean, this is uncanny. He absolutely, Kevin, deserves these All-American honors.
Oh, certainly. And again, has been for Georgia what we've seen other dynamic tight ends be at other places. And that is a matchup nightmare. And again, how many times in the SEC championship game, if you're watching the game, they say, oh, Alabama's got a linebacker on him. That's not going to work. So I think he's become that guy. And obviously this year's not done, but what could he do in another couple of years there in Athens, where he's not going to get any easier to cover? That's for sure, Ben. And again, just kind of the next in line of those guys we've seen that are just matchup nightmares, and they're not the quote traditional tight end where they're going to hang in and block. Kyle Pitts wasn't asked to block at Florida. Why would you do that? You look at some of the other guys around college that have come up, Pat Fryermuth, those guys aren't asked to block. In college, they're asked to go out there and be a mismatch and catch the football. They are a receiver that happens to be a little big, maybe a little thick, likes to have a little extra biscuit with lunch.
All of it. I'll stop it all up.
So maybe just a little bigger than your traditional wide receiver, but they can run and they can go get open and make plays.
Now, make no mistake about this. When you talk about the University of Georgia and tight ends, now it's not like he's coming from a place that has slouches. I mean, Jarvis Johnson, you talk about Randy McMichael, you talk about Ben Watson, you talk about Orson Charles, Leonard Pope, Arthur Lynch. I mean, it's not like Georgia hasn't had them. And I think
Are you trying to say Georgia's tight end you?
That is not what I'm saying.
Oh.
I am saying that as a tight end, I am a lover of the position, and I'm an admirer of the craft of BJ. I mean, listen, I'm not crazy. My mama raised a young man with common sense. Back in 2000, people go, why Florida over Georgia? Well, one, listen, man, my mama told me I was going to Florida too. I'm looking at the rosters. I remember Randy McMichael, Jarvis Johnson, Ben Watson. That's the room. That's the tight end room. I'm supposed to leave my high school and go to Athens and go, hey, man, this room is nice, and never play. No, I think Brock Bowers is a manifestation of guys that came before him and what tight ends have become. He is benefiting. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but he don't got to be. And Kevin, like you said, if you're a linebacker saying, man, I mean, he don't look that big, yeah, but you got to deal with him. And he doesn't have any weaknesses. He's not catching wide sticks. He's not doing the Jason Witten option route. He's out there going deep. He's catching, and that's nothing against Jay Witt. I think what happens is, BJ, it's like you saying, BJ, if you're offensive coordinator, you said, I want to do a threat quarterback. I want a guy that can do both. If you are Stetson Bennett, they're gonna say, Stetson, what are you gonna remember most of your time in Georgia? Oh my God, which year? To my 2021, Brock.
Well, and here's a stat for people who need a frame of reference. Brock Bowers, freshman tight end, averages more yards per catch than Treylon Burks. And Burks might be the best receiver in college football on some days when he's at his best. So what Bowers is doing, and oh, by the way, Ben, he had 10 catches for $139 and a touchdown against Bama in the SEC title game. Look, hard to kind of get a feel for what we're going to see in Georgia, Michigan. Still a couple of weeks away. I know we're all still learning about Michigan, but this kid's got to be an X factor, Kevin. I mean, he's got to be one of the players that is going to determine who wins that Orange Bowl at the end of the month.
Certainly, and again, just more of the young weapons that Georgia has on that football team. Of course, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. I don't know if anybody was really shocked necessarily that those two guys are first team All-America. They played tremendously well all season long.
And Dean is everywhere. I mean, he's won a number of awards. Very cool. I know you guys mentioned it yesterday. He's doing a lot of nonprofit.
On the Good Works team. Yes.
Right. Community work as well. So really proud of that. But this guy, I mean, not that long ago, I was watching Roquan Smith saying there's a kind of instinctual speed and athleticism here and a recognition of plays that I don't know that I'm going to see too often again moving forward. And now when I see Nakobe Dean, I see a little bit of Roquan Smith. I know they're not the exact same player, but in terms of that immediacy, right, that ability to recognize what's happening and attack, it is blink of an eye. And he's a guy that can do a number of different things. He can rush the passer. He can certainly roam the middle of the field and kind of let plays come to him. He can attack at the line of scrimmage. He's an every down linebacker. We've seen Ben a higher precedent placed on linebackers at the next level.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about the edge rushing guys. I'm talking about, what you've seen with the Bucks and Seattle. And this is going to be a guy that gets drafted very early. He's going to play forever on Sundays, but he's a joy to watch.
Nakobe Dean, see ball, hit ball. He's all over the field, and he doesn't come off the field. Once again, the long line. BJ, I'm not going to be sitting here. I went to the University of Florida, people. I'm not going to be sitting here going through the timeline of these Georgia defensive players, but the Boss Baileys of the world. When you talk about Roquan, BJ, Rainey Curran. These guys been putting them out. But the thing about Nakobe Dean is, no, when he hits you, you go the other way. There is no, if it's 3rd and 1 and he meets you in that hole, that's a business decision. But yes, what you appreciate the most about Nakobe Dean is what you said, though, BJ, on the Good Works team. Understand, look, man, I got a platform. I got influence. Most people will not be in the position I'm in. I'm going to use it while I have it. And if you just happen to have on a different color jersey, I do this to everybody that's on the other side of that ball. May God bless you if you are wearing Michigan blue, because is he that good? You will get to find out, like you said, Kevin, at the end of the month.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that game, certainly in the playoffs. We've got so much more to come here on the show. College football, just news by the minute. Who's in the transfer portal? Coaches going all over the place. And certainly Mario Cristobal at Miami. That deal named yesterday. When we come back, we'll talk with Darren Smith, Miami legend, won 2 Super Bowls with the Cowboys, played for the Hurricanes, won 2 national championships there in South Florida, played with Mario Cristobal. He's going to join us when we come back. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're with us here on 3 and Out. Mario Cristobal back in South Florida at Miami. Our next guest played with Mario Cristobal at the U. He won 2 national championships there in Miami, won 2 Super Bowls with the Cowboys in National Football League. Linebacker Darren Smith joins us here on 3 and Out. Darren, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. I'm interested as a former Miami player, kind of the quest that Miami is on to kind of bring the U back. And Mario Cristobal, a former teammate of yours. What can you tell us about Mario Cristobal and the fact that he's now running the ship there in Miami?
Well, first of all, I tell you, I'm excited about it. Me and Mario came in together. And so we're part of this in class. We're family. First of all, it is always good to have, a king in the house running the show. But, even more than that, he's accomplished some great things at other programs. And I think that's what's going to help him be a better coach at Miami, being that, he's had some experience at Miami, but he's also had head coaching experience, at FIU and at schools like Oregon. And so, I think, I'm excited about it. I know he's an old school type of guy as far as when it comes down to discipline, very intense. And, right now, I just think that's what University of Miami needs, a guy like him.
And Darren, you could see his passion for the program in the press conference. When you play at Miami, when you win like you guys did, when you starred like you did, what does the program mean to you? And what do you think it means to Coach Cristobal?
Man, for me, since I was 14 years old, I love University of Miami. I knew where I wanted to be, when I was a little kid growing up. And for me to go there, it was just a dream come true for me. And I think Mario's the same way. He's a local kid from Miami, played at Columbus High, which is actually really close to the University of Miami. And so I know for him it was a dream come true. He followed in the footsteps of his brother, Lou Cristobal. And so, those two guys were there together. But I know this guy, his passion for UM, he had some opportunities there initially as a grad assistant. Then he became an actual coach there for about a week before he went over to University of Alabama with Lou Saban. But I think all of those things, really give him a good perspective, great experience at great programs. He was also at Rutgers for a little bit. And so I think he's seen, all levels of how to put programs together. He's seen the hard work and the grit like a guy like Schiano, but he's also seen the high standards, at Alabama. But he's also seen, the working to get quality recruits at a place like Oregon. And so I think all of that put together is going to really make him effective at Miami.
Darren, Florida is the breeding ground for athletes. When you talk about football, none greater than in South Florida. Mario's come out and said he want to put a fence around South Florida and try and kind of get back, to what had you guys successful from your time. How important is that to you to make sure that, look, we're not letting these guys that's 10 and 20 miles down the road, go to other schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the ultimate situation that we have to solve. When you look at all the coaches said the same thing in the past. We got to put a fence around this area because everybody is here taking our top athletes. You look at Alabama, they get the top athlete from Florida every year. I'm talking about freshmen who are starting. This been all the way since Cooper, who now plays for the Cowboys. All these local kids here in South Florida, and it's hard because now it's not a secret anymore. Recruiting is so different with social media now. Guys can't hide. Schools are down here. A lot of teams have good coaches, good coaching relationships with the high school coaches down here. But I think that's what's going to make it different for Mario, being a guy from here, a guy who's always been at, who always loved Miami, but he's always had those relationships with the coaches down here. And I think that's really what's going to help us as far as, getting some inroads with some of these up-and-coming recruits as well.
Darren, how quickly do you think he can turn this thing around? Obviously, the ACC in the Coastal Division has, I think everybody in the division has been to the ACC championship game within the last 8 years there in the ACC. So it seems to be pretty wide open. How quickly do you think he can get Miami turned around where they are a regular fixture and continue to get there and beyond?
Well, I think you made a great point right there. I think because the ACC is not a super strong conference right now. I think it's something that can happen rather quickly in the ACC. Now, as far as on the national level, as far as like getting in the playoffs, that's gonna take some time because you definitely got to get the right talent in, the type of recruit that you want for your system. I know he's still working out as far as getting a coaching staff, so we definitely got to make sure that there are guys who can help develop guys as well. It's one thing to have great talent, but we also have to be a developer of the talent. And so, I think it'll take a little bit of time. I'm willing to be patient with Mario because I know what he brings to the table. But I think in the ACC, I don't think that will take as long as far as developing some strength there and becoming at the top. Instead of kind of being just mediocre and middle of the line, everybody chicken turns winning. I like to see our turn like what Clemson did for a while and kind of run the ACC. But hopefully we can do that soon.
We've seen a number of former players come out and share their excitement over the hire and just kind of talk about how much the program means to them. How strong, Darren, is that fraternity of guys who played at the U, whether it was in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s, and how strong of a foundation can that be for Miami football overall?
Oh man, I mean, listen, we have a little text line that we have with all the former players, and I mean it goes all the way back. Guys from the early 80s to the younger guys in the 2000s, and everybody is family. And we're communicating with each other all the time, and it's just a different thing, man. It's just this school is truly family. And so when we see a guy like Mario, man, who's one of us, it just excites us. It excites us because we know he's really going to put the grind in. He's not looking for this to be let me come here and try to, get to the next job. I think I think this was his dream job, and all those other jobs kind of help him get to this point. And so, we're excited about the fact that we have somebody who wants to be here and wants this team to be great, not only just from a coaching standpoint, but just from his love for the school.
Alumni involvement is something that the U does no matter what. You guys always come back, whether you're in the league or not, come back and work out and make sure your presence is felt and known around campus. But how much greater is that going to be now having a guy like Mario as the head coach, knowing that guys like yourself, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed is on the staff already. Michael Irvin is only allowed to talk about two teams, the Cowboys and the U, on TV. How much greater is that going to be for you, Darren, knowing this? He going to hopefully have an open door policy to make sure you guys show these guys that you guys get to be a part of a legacy that's hard to live up to.
Well, I think it's going to be with Mario. Even at this press conference yesterday, there was quite a few former players and quite a few former teammates who were there, man. And right now, we all just want to give him support. We want to be there for him and whatever he may need as far as maybe like even if he wanted to come out and speak to the team or run camps where former players will come out and do. I mean, we'll do that because we always do that anyway as far as supporting the coaches. Guys like Butch Davis, who was there for a while, who was family as well, after being at Miami. But also with Randy Shannon, he was one of us too. Unfortunately, it didn't go as well for him. But hopefully, with this family guy, we hoping to really get behind him and stand behind him and help him to change this program around.
Darren Smith, our guest here on 3 and Out. Darren, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Hey, it was my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we appreciate it. Mario Cristobal there in South Florida taking over the U, and certainly in the ACC, especially in the Coastal Division, it's wide open as far as who wants to step up and take it. But it is a very interesting dynamic there. We have a bunch of former players, and it's easy to say, hey, we got a bunch of former players. No, you got a bunch of former mega stars of the sport that want to be actively involved with the program to try to get it back to where it once was. Much like Florida State, Ben and I talked about this on Monday. I don't know that they're ever going to get there, but certainly winning ACC championships with the U as your brand should be good enough to get you in consideration for the college football playoff. So got to get there. But Mario Cristobal, I think this is a guy, BJ, you and I maybe talked 9-10 years ago. We thought at some point that's going to be a dude that's coaching the U, and here he is.
Yeah, great hire. I mean, Oregon is a tremendous job. You appreciate all that's there, but if you're a guy that's from Miami who won 2 national championships at Miami, this is You heard Darren say it, a dream job. And you get to come home. The recruiting infrastructure is there. The program looks like, or the university looks like it's dedicating more resources, which kind of have to do in today's college football, to the program. The energy is there. The excitement's there. This guy loves the U, won championships at the U. And I think this is an exciting time for that program. I've said this before. College football is better when Miami's relevant. And I think it's a program with a special history, a unique history. You know, they've always had this attitude that we can do it. I mean, Howard Schnellenberger, the late Howard Schnellenberger, when he took over the program in, I believe, 79, Miami was on the verge of just being irrelevant. They had not mattered at all. He came in and said, we're going to win a national title in 5 years. Well, they won it in 4. And you think about all the legends that have come through there. I mean, I think Cristobal is in a great place.
Yeah, and the thing about it is when you hear the excitement in Darren's voice. I mean, the biggest misconception about former players is we don't want to see a teammate of ours succeed when they get that top spot. Let's face it. If you are the top, if you are the head guy at Miami and you went to Miami and you from Miami, that is a dream for you. You grew up a Miami Hurricanes fan. You had to have great success there, and like you said, he used those other jobs as a stepping stone to get to where he is, taking us away from those other jobs. But I don't know if you have a better alumni than Miami, like you said, Kevin. You look at Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, and we talking about some of the greatest players that ever played a game of football, not just in college, but when you have those guys, if you in the receiver room, Michael Irvin walk in, you're going to be quiet. Ray Lewis walking in the linebacker room, you're going to be quiet. Ed Reed might be the greatest safety of all time. Ken Dorsey, I mean, he walks in, people don't know who he is. They say, turn the tape on. So I just think that for Mario, just like I know, Kevin, right now, the excitement is there, the influence is there, the resources there. He has more money to spend on assistant coaches and analysts than Alabama. Well, we give you everything you need, Mario. And right now, you can do no harm because you have not coached in one game. But 2022 is rapidly approaching, and we know when the rubber meets the road, you're going to have to find it. But I do agree with Darren. Getting back in tops of the ACC might be a lot easier than getting back to the tops of college football, but he's gonna have to do it sooner rather than later, because when you're getting $8 million a year to live in South Florida, you're gonna have to get them dubs ASAP.
Well, that's certainly where it starts. But again, when you talk about recruiting, if you start winning in Miami, you're in a talent-rich environment to be able to get recruits. And as we've said, BJ and Ben, if you're the head coach at Miami, sure, you can recruit nationally, but you could also have a national caliber program and never go north of I-4. You really could, and really bring in enough talent to win and succeed in a big, big way. We've got more to come here. It's 3 and Out on this Wednesday, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us. Some interesting news out there today. The Braves, minor league teams, apparently have been bought by another company. So they're still the Braves minor league teams, but another company owns them and runs the day-to-day. Still going to be the Stripers, Braves, Rome, Augusta, Green Jackets also got bought in the mix. But Diamond Baseball Holdings, a subsidiary of Endeavor, buying up all the minor league teams. And a lot of people saying, is this Liberty Media posturing to sell the big club? We'll have to wait and see. But a lot of rules changed in minor league baseball, and a new company coming in and buying up not just the Braves, but a couple of other minor league teams out there as well.
Yes. I mean, at first glance, my thought was, this is unique. The Atlanta Braves no longer are in control of, I guess,
they control the players and the contracts and who goes up and down, but everything else, no.
Right. Is no longer with the Atlanta Braves. It's with a holding firm. And you mentioned there are some other minor league teams, major league organizations that are involved. Do you have a read on this? I mean, I know a lot of people that I've seen on Twitter, Kevin, have been like, yeah, I wonder if this could be part of something else. Who knows? Don't want to speculate there, but is this just a modern business move, or do you think this is, I don't know, something worth talking about for a couple of days? I mean, is this bigger news than maybe we realize it to be, or is this just a business move on a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever?
I think it's just a business move also, but I think it's interesting that maybe you see some of this more where the major league teams don't own the minor league teams, because you're seeing more and more things have to be done around. And I don't know if the team is still on the hook for that, or if they just are involved with the players, but obviously minor league players are now going to have housing. That's part of their deal. And so does the new company who just bought it have to take care of that? Or do the Braves have to take care of that? Well,
my first thought, and you corrected me, but my first thought when I read this was, so the Braves call up Gwinnett and say, hey, we need you to send pitcher X over to the team. And then Endeavor comes in and says, no, not today. That's not happening.
No, they're in charge of the facilities, the game day operations, the day-to-day. Hey, we're going to have a concert out here at whatever park. And we want to change the name of the park, we can do that. The Braves don't have anything really to do with any of that anymore.
At the end of the day, it sounds like the rules of engagement have changed. Like you said, Kevin, I mean, when they first got into some of these deals, like all of a sudden, this is how business is going now. Wait a minute, I got to take care of housing, yeah. And I got to pay, yeah. And if something, it's like, so when you think about, it's all about expenses. Kevin used the term subsidiary of Endeavors. I don't know what that means. But what it sounds to me is a lot is changing right now with the Braves. And I think, Kevin, it might be a good thing, because it's like, look, the Braves spend a certain way, and they looking down the line saying, dude, are we gonna have to change up how we spend to keep certain players, starting with Freddie? Is Freddie Free gonna be the first of many, Kevin, to say, hey man, we got to give it to somebody, but we're gonna have to get rid of something maybe to even have them?
I don't know. I just think to me, from a major league standpoint, I don't know the complete ins and outs, but if I'm the Braves saying, or Liberty Media saying, so wait a minute, we can still go down and get a player pulled up and we can control the flow of players, but another company basically has to worry about all the rest of it. I mean,
and I assume
you don't have to worry about the stadium. That's somebody else's problem. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. The game day stuff.
Talk about a sale. Liberty Media got paid for these teams.
They got paid for the facilities and all that. Yeah,
right.
But absolutely. I don't know what they did not disclose the amount of money that was involved in this. I would imagine it wasn't $10. So, I mean, it's going to be a significant amount of money. But again, it's one thing that's making a little news. And you had the Rule 5 draft for minor league players today. The Braves did get a first baseman from the Giants in the Rule 5 draft, which is pretty hard to explain. But basically, it's you make players available for other teams to grab as kind of like whatever, according to Rule 5, and the Braves took a first baseman. A lot of people say, oh, they took a first baseman. I mean, this is not a guy that's major league ready by any chance. So, but a lot of people reading into that, they wouldn't bring Freddie Freeman back. But you can't even negotiate with major league guys right now. And this was minor leagues is still kind of business as usual because this is doesn't fall under the collective bargaining for Major League Baseball. So minor league business is still going on, just no major league business at all. So you can speculate all you want about Freddie. The Braves can't talk to him. So nor can anybody else.
Go to Braves.com. Be like, where the players at? They can't even show their face. That's the craziest thing you ever seen in your life. And people still going there though.
It looks like a website. All the MLB websites
it looks
right
like
now.
The website is under construction.
It looks like a website that was made in IT 101. Construct your own website and go from there. We got more to get to. We'll take 3 right around the corner. We'll also talk a little Georgia Southern football in hour number 2 as well. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us. Thanks for making us a part of your day. We've got plenty to get to here this hour as we're talking college football. Here on the show, Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Radio Network will join us. We'll look at all the changes that are happening there in Statesboro. A lot of new faces coming in on that coaching staff and more. Also, have a little fun with the Heisman as the Heisman Trophy presentation coming up this weekend in New York. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. This has all to do with NFL quarterbacks today, fellas, for Take 3. Mike Tannenbaum with ESPN ranked the NFL quarterbacks. So this has to do with kind of his list of ranking the quarterbacks. Take 1, Matt Ryan came in 18th place. Is that fair?
No, that's hard to do. Like if we were to sit down and even try to justify it, right? You get if he's not top 8, top 10. But I think then we were looking at the list and Ryan Tannehill was ahead of him. And,
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. It's amazing how quickly we've forgotten what Matt Ryan has done. And this is not a vintage year for Atlanta. We know that. But you're talking about a roster where you have significant offensive line issues. You're still working out, trying to develop a rotation of playmakers. Your running game is led by a wide receiver at this point. So I think Matt's doing the best he can do. And maybe on a list like this, you just knock Matt Ryan down if you're looking at it through the lens of what am I doing with my team, kind of in conjunction. Atlanta, of course, has a losing record, but I think Matt Ryan is still a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the league. Maybe if you want to get, really out there, top 13, 14 at worst, but to put him 18th, and maybe there's a metric at play here I don't know about, but to put him 18th is hard to justify. I mean, I can't say that about a guy who the Falcons aren't losing because of him. You're not losing because of Matt Ryan. I think the only reason you're even borderline in the mix for a potential playoff spot, and you're at least out there if it were to get interesting, is because of Matt Ryan. So no, 18th best quarterback in the league, no.
Okay, the thing about these lists, this is the nonsense I be talking about. This will be clickbait. So you telling me Matty Ice, Ryan Tannehill is over Matty Ice? In what world? What if Matty Ice had a 2,000-yard rusher? Ryan Tannehill still ain't better than him. Kirk Cousins, 2,000-yard receivers, and Dalvin Cook, and Irv Smith Jr., by the way, and he still ain't better than Matty Ice. Matty Ice is the second best quarterback in his division. I mean, you look at the NFC East, what? Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. I think Matty Ice is better right now than Jalen Hurts. Okay, so that's 2 divisions. So right now he's what? Number 3. Then you start talking about the AFC West. I get that. Patrick Mahomes, I get that part. Russell Wilson, I get that part. Kyler Murray, I get that part. It's not too many guys better than Matty Ice, even if his numbers are down. Some of these dudes are they in the words of Deion Sanders, they all right, but they're not better than Matty. How many guys got regular season MVPs on their resumes? I just think that sometimes we don't appreciate Matty Ice. But what's the guy who did the list again, Kevin? What's his name?
Tannenbaum.
Tannenbaum also drafted Mark Sanchez and Geno Smith. He drafted Mark Sanchez and Geno Smith. So this is the guy who drafted Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble, and Geno Smith. All I'm saying is we don't appreciate it. Now I know earlier, Kevin, before Kevin was handling some business when we first came on the show. Glenn Dorsey. That's the only reason. That's the only person Kevin likes more than Matty Ice. At the time he did. I wanted Glenn.
He was selling it too, man. The rest of America was saying,
"Oh my God,
Falcons, take a quarterback." Kevin's going, "No, you got to get Glenn Dorsey."
Can I raise and what could the Falcons use now?
Listen, the Falcons needed
They could use some defensive linemen.
You're justifying a pick
I'm just saying,
from a dozen years ago.
No, I'm saying, but yeah, and for a dozen straight years, we said, man, the Falcons could use some defensive linemen.
Glenn Dorsey's not an edge rusher. I like Glenn Dorsey. I like him a lot. I'm not going to get into this.
I mean, to be fair, they could use anybody that could rush.
Come on, say it, Kevin. I mean,
edge, middle, line, anybody.
Listen, young man, how tall are you? Can you rush the pass? Come on in here. You can do better.
I mean, if you can rush to the supermarket, we might be.
Come on, Kevin. Don't get to Kevin to telling the truth about the D-line play or lack thereof for them Falcons. I mean, and if
Marlon Davidson had a pick 6.
Marlon Davidson did have a pick 6. The problem is he needs to rush the guy he picked the ball off of. He needs to rush him as well. I love athleticism. How many sacks he got, BJ? Cricket.
Still got Grady.
Listen, if I see another D lineman say vote for me for the Pro Bowl and they play for Atlanta, I'm coming up there with a gallon of baby powder, and y'all know what we about to do. Line y'all up. You Dante Fowler, you too.
I think go back to the question: are there 17 quarterbacks
No.
I would take over Matt Ryan? And I look at it when I'm ranking quarterbacks. I don't say like, well, he plays for the Falcons. Okay, put him on any team. Are there 17 quarterbacks I would take before Matt Ryan? No, that's way too low for Matt Ryan. Now, is he having a great year? No, that's partially because he plays for the Falcons. Is he a top 5? No, probably not. He's not 18 though. When you're looking at it from that standpoint. Take 2, Trevor Lawrence is ahead of Baker Mayfield in this rankings, but should he be?
No, and listen, I am still, obviously, goes without saying, extremely optimistic about Trevor's future. I mean, you talk about Matt Ryan having some limitations. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the Jaguars, y'all talked about it yesterday, not using their best player, James Robinson. You had DJ Shark get hurt early, out for the season. I don't know what you're doing at the tight end position, the offensive line. I don't know what Jacksonville's doing. And I think Trevor Lawrence is making the best of a situation that is not awesome. And you're going to be drafting near the top yet again, and we'll see if they go offensive line. I personally, looking ahead, think Evan Neal would be a great fit if you want to help Trevor and kind of give him a starting point to tackle from Alabama. But Baker Mayfield's been in the playoffs, man. Has he been a disappointment this season? Yes. Has he lived up consistently to the hype of being the number 1 overall pick? Maybe not, but I think sometimes those expectations are so unrealistic that unless you're Cam Newton, unless you're just a superstar right away, people are going to talk about you as this or that. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield has had a good NFL career. He has not been at his best lately, but he's gotten Cleveland into the playoffs, okay? That hasn't happened many times in a generation, and I think there's value there. I wouldn't put Baker Mayfield in the top 15 of quarterbacks in the National Football League, but just being honest, and I say this literally wearing a Jaguars hat, I don't know what Trevor Lawrence has done to be viewed as a better player right now than Baker Mayfield. Now, if you want to say our projections are that in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, Trevor Lawrence is going to be a better player than Baker Mayfield, I'll buy that. Absolutely. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was heralded as one of the top prospects we've ever seen. And for good reason. You know, he has all the skills you look for. But what 12, 13, however many games we are into this season, we have not seen that materialize into consistent production. So love Trevor, understand that Baker's had a disappointing season, but right now, Ben, I cannot put Trevor Lawrence ahead of Baker Mayfield.
BJ, I did what you normally do. I went to the numbers. Baker Mayfield on the season, 2,413 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks. And he has receivers that you actually normally you see him. Hey, what's up, Jarvis? What's up, Njoku? What's up, Higgins? What's up, Hooper and those guys? I don't know who plays for Jacksonville. I don't know who they are. Now, you talk about Trevor Lawrence. 2,369 yards, 9 touchdowns, 10 picks. But you got to put it in perspective. Baker Mayfield has missed games this year because, he got injured. Trevor Lawrence fought to get back on the field because he had an ankle injury. The reason why I would say Trevor Lawrence is they have given Baker Mayfield everything. 2 running backs, a bunch of receivers, 2 tight ends. It's him. Baker Mayfield might be the problem in Cleveland because Trevor Lawrence, James Robinson might be his best player. James Robinson putting the ball on the ground.
So is everybody else.
Okay. And what I'm saying is, it's like this when you talk. It's like this when you start talking about talent. If it's close, I go with the young guy. So we just looking at I'm looking at 2021. I'm not giving the career achievement award. 2021. I'm saying, hey man, if the one guy is the rookie, why his numbers are similar to who does Trevor Lawrence throw the ball to? Laviska Shenault, O'Shaq Hennessy. I mean, it's not even comparable, BJ. And one has to overcompensate for what he doesn't have. The other guy can't even take advantage of what the draft has given him and free agency. So for me, I think it is Trevor Lawrence to BJ. Say this. We always do this. Switch them. Trevor Lawrence has Cleveland's offensive firepower. Do you think his numbers look
I
like
hear
this
you.
right now?
I just have to give credit to Baker got Cleveland into the playoffs.
At the end of the day, there are 3 number 1 overall picks right now for the Cleveland Browns. Two of them play at defensive end, the other one play quarterback. And you can't even tell because if the quarterback ain't playing complimentary football, the rest of the guys around him don't even matter. But if you got Kareem Hunt, if you got Nick Chubb, if you got Jarvis Landry, if you got Austin Hooper, if you got David Njoku, and so on and so forth, and you got mediocre numbers, it might be the guy that touches the football every play. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence.
Well, it doesn't feel right having Trevor Lawrence ahead of Baker Mayfield because, again, the Jags are still inept as a as a franchise, much like the Cleveland Browns have shown to be as well. I'm going to say no for right now, but, I mean, there's definitely ground to be made up by Trevor Lawrence. I think if he can get Jacksonville to a couple more wins, improve his numbers, certainly yes. Got to move quickly. Take 3, Pat Mahomes on Mike Tannenbaum's list is number 2. I know a lot of people saying not having a statistically great season to this point, but he's ahead of Tom Brady, who's number 3. Who is having the better season, Pat or Tom?
Yeah, I can't do that. I got to go with Tom Brady. I mean, you go back to last year. I know Cam's in here riding for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is number 1 on the list, okay? But I think Tom Brady deserves to be number 2. It's relative. We're talking about the difference in number 2 and number 3. We're not saying Pat Mahomes isn't great, isn't an all-timer, isn't one of the best in the league. But he's not Tom Brady right now. What Tom Brady's doing is absurd. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And for whatever reason, Mahomes and the Chiefs have taken a slight step back. You see that in their overall record. Right now, I would go Brady over Mahomes.
Well, I mean, the numbers seem to back up Tom Brady. Who leads the league in pass yards? That would be Tom Brady. Who leads the league in touchdown passes? That would be Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes, he gets to overcompensate for not playing within the confines of the quarterback position. Now, I know you got Kelsey and Hill and those guys, but at the end of the day, one guy's 44, leading the league in all major categories when you talk about the National Football League. Another guy has a great-looking mohawk, and he'll throw the ball across his face and do things you shouldn't do. Love Patrick Mahomes. BJ, we need to stop this. Patrick Mahomes has the potential to be an all-time great. He is not an all-time great yet. I'm going to tell you why.
He's well on his way, man.
Okay, BJ.
Well, on his way. You got to finish the race.
There's been a
lot of guys who've been well on their way.
No. There have not been.
I know. I understand.
There have not been a lot of guys who have done what he's done 5 years into the league or 6, whatever it is. No, there have not been. No.
All right. I mean, Patrick Mahomes. He won the MVP. His second year, the first time he started, he won the MVP. He won the Super Bowl year three? Ben Roethlisberger won the Super Bowl year 2, right? Went to the AFC Championship year 1. Ben Roethlisberger has 2 championships, yet they don't even talk about him in the same stratosphere as Patrick Mahomes. I know that Patrick Mahomes is that dude. I am not saying that. But listen. We ain't gonna go ahead and crown him because look at it for what it is. If he's not playing as well, it's because he's overcompensated. We'll see.
If you want to crown,
you want to crown him.
You want to crown the crown. That's why we took the field. I think for right now, again, for this season, Tom Brady's having a better go of it. But I mean, Pat Mahomes is still great. I just think, again, when you talk about trajectory and when you say things like on their way to be, like, you got to finish the race, right? I mean, because what if Tom Brady would have stopped after Super Bowl to like 2 or 3? He's been like, is he well on his way to be? No, he's the GOAT. And he's been to so many. I think you got to finish that race before you start crowning. If you want to crown him, you got to crown. Look, I'm just saying. He is. Again, people say, like, when you say this, like, you think he sucks or something. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But people Ben, we know this because I make a joke of on the show.
Yeah.
There are so many goats, we could be running a livestock yard around here in sports. I'm telling you, like, how many goats are running around the National Football League right now? There's so many goats, it's ridiculous.
Listen, Aaron Rodgers, go.
How many goats? I mean,
Cam Newton, go.
Yeah, we happen
to
be living in an amazing sports time. There are so many active goats. We could have a petting zoo. I'm just telling you, it is true. I mean, because think about what GOAT means. Greatest of all time. I mean, there's never been anybody better. And we got like 15 of them.
There's a difference.
Right now.
Greatest. There's a difference in best and
I'm
greatest.
sorry, we're not walking around going, choo choo, tugboat. No, we're not doing that. We're not talking about boat.
Patrick Mahomes goes to another Super Bowl and he wins it. He will have won 2, like who? Eli Manning, who never lost Super Bowl, by the way, and Ben Roethlisberger, who went to 2, who went to 3, and lost 1. All I'm saying is, we look at Throwing up the football, I get it. I am not taking nothing away from the man with the red mohawk. I am not taking
Kind
nothing
of sounds
away.
like you are, because when you were describing him, your second reference was the guy who throws across his body.
Whoa,
like
man.
that's how you describe him.
No. He don't do no look passes.
Well, he's also like an MVP and a Super Bowl champ. You could.
He is a Super Bowl champ. I'm not taking that away. But if he would have won two, I mean, right now, you think Patrick Mahomes is a better player than Aaron Rodgers? See what I'm saying? I mean, is Patrick Mahomes a better player than Russell Wilson?
Yes.
Based off of
his production and proficiency.
All right.
So basically the argument is you have to choose one. Ben's taking Russell Wilson.
I'm taking Russell last name Wilson all the time. Russell last name Wilson did it with a bunch of no-name guys at receiver and a running game in the Legion of Boom.
We've got more to come here on Thresh Take 3. We do it every day this time. Colin Lacey joins us. We're talking Georgia Southern football when we return here on 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
What's up? This is the boy Peter Ward, aka P Dub, Florida State great. Hey, you listening to 3 and Out with Ben, BJ, and Kevin.
Never stress. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best.
Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. So much change going on across college football. The coaching carousel is in full swing as well. And joining us here on the program from the Georgia Southern Sports Network, Colin Lacey steps in here on 3 and Out. Colin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, guys. I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. And certainly at Georgia Southern, it's been fast and furious for Clay Helton in the last handful of days, hiring some new coaches. What can you tell us about Brian Ellis, offensive coordinator? I know from Western Kentucky, a lot of offense they were able to put up last year. That obviously portends that Georgia Southern is going to be flinging it around the park.
And I think what you've seen from Coach Helton is going to be a little bit of a hybrid of what he's done at a couple of his different stops. He said from the word go that he wanted more of a 60-40 split of pass or run to pass. Still going to be a heavy run offense for Georgia Southern, like you've seen the history go through. But Brian Ellis coming in as somebody that you talked about, Western Kentucky for the last 3 years. This past year, second in the nation in scoring at better than 40 points a game. And I think that's what you're starting to get to of. It's not necessarily the vanilla offense that everybody's running across college football, but it's using what you have at your disposal. Coach Helton has talked about it since he got here, being able to use the stable of running backs he's got, and then being able to recruit and use the transfer portal a little bit to get some more receivers in and have somebody that can run the offense.
And Colin, you mentioned the running backs. Michigan State's Ephraim Reed comes in as the running backs coach. What can you tell us about Coach Reed?
Done a really good job the last couple of days of getting to know everybody around here. He knows the Sun Belt Conference. He knows what this conference is about. Being Louisiana's his alma mater, he was there from 18 to 19. Spent the last couple of years at Michigan State as an offensive analyst. And when people across college football see the word offensive analyst, he's not an on-field coach, kind of raises some eyebrows. But this is somebody that helped coach Kenneth Walker III, a Heisman candidate. Everybody knows what he's been able to do for the Spartans the last couple of years. And so it's somebody that's had a heavy influence on developing the talent that Michigan State has. And now he's coming into a running backs room for Georgia Southern that is already established. You've got guys like J.D. King with the possibility to come back next year, guys like Gerald Green, A.J. Brown, along with Jalen White, who you've seen what those guys have been able to do. And now you're getting somebody that has the pedigree to be able to not only recruit and bring more of those guys in, but also have the development side in the background that he does.
And Colin, when you talk about the fact that you're bringing in two guys that you look at what Michigan State running backs are doing, you look at what Western Kentucky receivers have done, it's got to show those guys that's already on campus that, look, we're not going to try to take away from you guys. We're showing that we're bringing in some of the best on the hands, what you do, even if we are going to a more pass-heavy offense.
Yeah, and it's really the entire staff that Coach Helton has brought in. Ryan Applin, the guy that's come in as the pass game coordinator, tight ends, inside receivers. Brian Ellis, the offensive coordinator that we've talked about. Ephraim Reed at running back. Keeping Kevin Whitley on as the cornerbacks and assistant head coach. And even some of the off-the-field staff, the support staff. You got Ryan Smith coming over from Auburn, the GM of football. Robert Stenner coming over to today as the director of strength and conditioning. These are all guys that have seen it and have done it at the highest level of college football. A lot of Auburn connections, a lot of USC connections from Coach Helton's stops there. But you've seen guys like Steiner, a guy for strength and conditioning. He's been at Notre Dame from 18 to 20. He's been at USC. Guys that know this area in the Southeast but have seen it at the highest level, and that's kind of the reoccurring theme, being able to see it at an SEC school and being able to do it for a number of years there as well.
You look at obviously what you mentioned a minute ago, where you're going to more scoring. I mean, look at every conference championship game. Seemingly, offense is winning out. Safe to say we might see some records potentially set next year. I know our own Christian Gocal had a great stat. Western Kentucky's leading receiver this year would have been the career leader in receptions and second all-time in receiving yards based on this year alone there at Western Kentucky. Safe to say it might be a big change in terms of production there.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a good change. Coach Helton has talked about it's not going to be completely air raid offense, not a Hal Mummy type offense, but you are going to see a lot more pass elements in it. And when you get somebody like a Cam Ransom, the freshman quarterback for Georgia Southern this past year, somebody that can throw the ball as well as he did, you saw it kind of towards the tail end of Georgia Southern out of necessity having to throw the ball more. But whether it's Cam Ransom, somebody new that comes into this offense for Georgia Southern, you're going to be able to see a lot more diversity in this offense than you've seen from Georgia Southern, I think, the last couple of years especially.
When you look at Kevin Whitley, who you mentioned, just how valuable of a coach is he for Coach Helton to help the program move forward, but also maintain, obviously, familiarity and have a guy on staff who knows the program, loves the program, and, of course, was an All-American player for the program as well.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of gives the tip of the cap to Kevin Whitley and the job that he did after taking over as the interim head coach 4 weeks into the season this past year, guiding this program through a lot of really difficult situations the back half of the season for Georgia Southern. And we talked about it on our podcast earlier this week. This isn't just a kind of token title for Coach Whitley as the assistant head coach. This is something that he's earned. And we've talked to Coach Helton a couple of times already of how much respect he has for Coach Whitley, because Coach Helton has been the interim head coach a number of different times out at USC, so he knows what he had to go through. And a difficult situation, but Coach Whitley handled it with class. I think he was the perfect guy to pilot this program through the back half of the season. And then you get the title of assistant head coach to not only be kind of a guiding force for the team, it just goes to show you how much Kevin Whitley is beloved here in Statesboro. And like you talked about, he's an All-American player. He's been a quarterbacks coach. He's the interim head coach. And so he's seen it from a lot of different ways. And this is a guy that absolutely bleeds blue for Georgia Southern. He is one of the best that has come through Georgia Southern.
When you look at, Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, App State, when you think about a team like Georgia Southern, they was at a disadvantage because they was recruiting a different type of player because of that type of offense. How much better does this make them more well-rounded recruiting-wise because they out there competing for the same guys now?
Yeah, and I think you're starting to see that with some of the commitments that have come in the last few weeks and some of the offers that have been extended the last couple of weeks ever since Coach Helton took over with about a month left in the regular season. He was able to get a jump on some of those guys that if the announcement isn't made until after the season, you're probably that next week deciding who your next head coach is going to be. And really and truly, with all the turnover that the college football coaching carousel has turned into the last week and a half, you don't know if a guy like Clay Helton would still be on the table. And so you get him into Statesboro, get him locked and loaded in Statesboro a month left into the regular season. He's out recruiting. He's out doing what he needs to do to build for 2022. And you get a jump to where you can use that December signing period to a huge advantage for Georgia Southern that some of these coaches that are taking over a new program may not have. You look at somebody like Louisiana's head coach and Billy Napier that goes to Florida. He talked about it in his press conference that they're not going to be able to use the December signing day very much, if at all, because you don't have the guys in that you need. And so you're not going to be signing somebody that you don't know if they fit or not into your system. Because it's not just you're recruiting the guy to see if he can play football. It's a matter of does it fit that what your program does, and it doesn't fit on both sides to where are you what that player needs. And so Coach Helton has been able to get a jump on that and be able to get a jump on schools like the Louisianas, the Coastal, the App that always everybody comes to Georgia to get because it's a hotbed for recruiting in college football. And so I think the fact that you've had Coach Helton for a month with boots on the ground, being able to go out and recruit, and then you get these coaches that we've talked about, get them in early in the game, it gives you so much of an advantage going forward.
Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Sports Network, joining us here on 3 and Out. Colin, we've talked a lot about the offense, but I haven't seen a lot of defensive hires necessarily. Who are some of the names we've heard about, or maybe you've heard about for the defensive side of the football that Clay Helton might be targeting? And at this stage, with early signing period starting in a week, might those come after the early signing period?
Yeah, I would be surprised. You may not have the full staff until after the signing period, but I think you're going to see some of those, especially defensive side of the game, trickle in the next couple of days, being able to get some of those guys locked in and have a week or so until that signing day of what your defense is going to look like. You've got Kevin Whitley, who is the first one and the only holdover from the previous staff. So from the word go, you had Coach Helton recruiting on the offensive side, Coach Whitley recruiting on the defensive side, along with a couple of different staffers throughout the building, not necessarily on-field coaches. But for Kevin Whitley being the cornerbacks coach, he's kind of being able to decide, all right, what does this defense look like under Coach Helton's vision, and what are the guys that we need to go after? And so he's being able to do that now. But I think the defensive staff, you're going to see really fall into place. Not necessarily the whole staff, but you're going to see them fall into place in the next couple days.
Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Sports Network, our guest here on the 3 and Out. Colin, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Colin Lacey joining us here on 3 and Out. And as you said, kind of interesting with Clay Helton. You've got the offensive side mostly taken care of there. You got one coach on the defensive side. You got the early signing period is next week. I mean, if you hire a guy on Thursday, Friday, which we haven't seen any announcement yet. So let's just say best case scenario, you hire a guy tomorrow. How much of a recruiting impact is that guy going to be able to have in about 5 days?
Yeah, tough to say. And I do think you're going to see a number of programs around the country, especially programs that are going through coaching changes, maybe sign a majority of their class the traditional National Signing Day. And keep in mind, you can be busy in the transfer portal as well, well past December 15th. So I think you're going to see programs that are sort of starting over or resetting be a little more patient with adding personnel, with finalizing their rosters. But yeah, having Coach Whitley on that defensive staff, just a major advantage, and a guy that did a really good job in an interim role, was just a great player for the program. I think that accelerates the process moving forward for Coach Helton, having Coach Whitley on staff.
Yeah, and Kevin, I think you can have a huge role. Make no mistake about these coaches. I mean, they might be recruiting in different areas, but recruiting is recruiting. You get a new job, they give you your geographic area, you get out there and get it. Your job is to make sure you're keeping up with who's doing what. I mean, when you think about what Georgia Southern has on defense, you're going to be able to go out there and recruit some big-time players. But that's why you get hired for 2 reasons. One, because of how well you coach the guys on campus, and the other half is how do you get those guys on campus. So I do think when you look at these guys, that's the name of the game now. Coach Helton, everybody was going to say, where was he going to land? He's in Georgia Southern. So that means that, everybody that's up under him going to have to make sure they're going out there and getting those guys to go out there and run these schemes. But I do agree, Kevin, we're less than a week away from early signing day, you got to go out there and prove your worth. And if you are an assistant coach, recruiting is how you prove your worth. Every day I go on Twitter now, I see coaches standing next to these young men saying, great home visit. It's going to be home visits. I mean, somebody said Billy Napier has done more home visits in 5 days than Dan Mullen did while at Florida. And I am not disagreeing with that. So, yes, go out there, get those guys. Because what makes coaching easier? When I got those guys ready to go out there and run them schemes, it makes those coaches look like geniuses out there.
We've got more to come here. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. You can also find us streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Black leather glove, no sequin. Buckles on the jacket, it's elite. Nike crossbody got a piece in it.
What's up, guys? This is Ryan Clark, Super Bowl champ, now ESPN NFL analyst, and you're listening to 3 and Out with BJ, Ben, and Kevin.
Right foot slide. Basically, I'm saying either way, we about to slide. Hey,
Heisman Trophy coming up this weekend. A lot of folks think it's going to be Bryce Young taking home the hardware there from Alabama. But we got a little exercise here of Heisman Trophy winners, our own Heisman house, if you will. I'm going to give you 2 Heisman winners. You have to pick one to win you one game. All right, not a schedule. I don't need them to go 12-0. I don't need them to go 13-0, 14-0, 15-0. I need them to win one game. So
Well, that's good for Ben. I'm just saying if you have to go undefeated, what?
Listen. All I'm saying is, yes, an undefeated season is prestigious, but if you walked away, the last team stayed in.
There you go.
That's another conversation.
So
for another
does
day.
everybody understand the exercise? I will
Yes.
give you a 2
Yes.
Heisman Trophy winners.
Yes.
You must pick one of them to win you a game, not a season, not a run, a game. Charlie Ward or Danny Werfel.
Ugh.
That's 2 great quarterbacks. 2 really, obviously.
Two of the reasons I fell in love with the game, man. College football, I go back to the mid-'90s. You think about Charlie Ward, Danny Werfel, Tommy Frazier in there. Saw both of those guys, Ward and Werfel, play in person.
And this is, I will say,
Wow.
this is to win a collegiate game, not what they did the NFL or anything like that.
Sure, yeah. There's no wrong answer here. Because of the dual threat ability, I will lean Charlie Ward. I think maybe if you need to stretch a play out, get a first down running, I think Charlie Ward will do that for you. Close, could go either way. I have no problem if you go Werfel, but I will go Charlie Ward.
This is the fast pace versus the fun and gun. I think when you think about the fact that one offense is still being ran right now, and when you look at what it was going way back when in the early 90s with Danny Werfel, what he lacked athletically, they made up with those guys around him. Give me Danny Werfel because he was doing the fun and gun when nobody was doing it. And I'm not saying Charlie Ward, 2 guys ahead of their time, but I will go with D. Werfel.
I will say this. I would take both of these guys over probably the next 7 or 8 guys we name on this list. I'm just saying. That's why we go through this exercise.
So where are you going?
I'm going with Charlie Ward just for the little dynamic. And again, now we see teams try to go fast. Florida State was kind of the precursor to that. And I always like dual threat. I mean, that's just me. Give me a guy that can chunk it. And if it breaks down, they can still run a little bit. Danny Werfel, I don't know if he can beat me.
He's a 10 man. He can only go back and throw forward.
All right, Matt Leinart or Marcus Mariota?
Woo.
This is tough too because kind of different situations. If we're talking about the kind of the best versus greatest, I think you think about the national championships with Leinart, but I also think there were moments where Matt Leinart could win games and he didn't have to be the focal point. And again, we're splitting hairs between all-time greats, but I think Marcus Mariota elevating the status quo at Oregon and doing it with the incredible proficiency. I mean, some of his dual threat production numbers are all-time FBS records. I think I would go Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I mean, BJ, listen, I always thought one way, but then when I really think about what Marcus Mariota, he was trying to do something that we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, I know you had, I think Joey Harrington, I think he went to Oregon back in the day, but we look at what Marcus Mariota brought to the table, and he did it when Jameis Winston was in college because they played each other head to head. I mean, love
the only quarterback to beat Jameis Winston.
I'm gonna go with Marcus Mariota because, like you said, Kevin, if it breaks down, even if it don't break down, catch me if you can. Still had a beautiful deep ball. Give me Marcus Mariota.
I'm going Matt Leinart. Isn't Matt Leinart part of that run that Ben always talks about? Like they only played in.
They only played in that.
Okay, well there you go. I'm going to go Matt Leinart to get it done for me over Marcus Mariota. And again, I think Charlie Ward, Danny Werfel over both of them. Robert Griffin III or Carson Palmer?
I got to go RG3. RG3, the proficiency. I love quarterbacks that complete a high percentage of their passes, that minimize turnovers, and that are also dual threat. I think having that extra element is a big time advantage. RG3 for me.
Listen, trailblazers, pioneers, they go out there and get it done. I saw Bryce Young say one reason why he wanted to play the quarterback position because he saw RG3 doing it. Give me RG3.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, you got to go RG3. Again, just the dual nature of what he was able to do at that position. Sam Bradford or Troy Smith?
Now, Sam Bradford nor Troy Smith had the championship game results they wanted, but I think Sam Bradford pushing the ball downfield. I think didn't he have like 50 touchdown passes one year?
Yes.
Troy Smith got Ohio State, of course, to the title game, lost to your Gators. But for me, Sam Bradford, and maybe his pro career didn't go as expected. Still was in the league a long time, but collegiately, you're going to be hard pressed to find numbers better than his.
Yeah, Sam Bradford was a guy that when you talk about just playing the quarterback position, just being efficient at it, finding a way, to just sit in that pocket and pick people apart, beautiful deep ball. Having had all the intangibles. So, yeah, I love Troy Smith, but I'm going to have to go with Sam Bradford.
Yeah, it's Sam Bradford on this one. I think, just if I had to win one game, I'm going to go with Sam Bradford to get it done. I think a little bit better passing there at Oklahoma. Johnny Football or Jameis Winston? Win me one game.
Well, and Jameis only lost one time, but Johnny Manziel went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. Which nobody does. I think Jameis Winston was more consistent throwing the ball downfield, and obviously dual threat Johnny Manziel. So I'm kind of going against what I normally go with, but I think there's an element in any big game. We're talking about one game where you got to be proficient going down the field. Johnny Manziel absolutely could do that, but few are better at that than Jameis. Think about the late drive, the game-winning drive in the national championship game. So love both, but I'll go Winston.
I'm gonna go Johnny Football because BJ, he has that thing you can't coach, the ability to improvise. You talk about going to the Tuscaloosa. Not too many people in this, in the Nick Saban era can say they ever beat Alabama. You talk about a guy in Johnny Football who he didn't lack any confidence. He could flat out had the whole world talking about Johnny Football. Give me Johnny Football because, like I said, breaks down, get it done. Yes, give me that cheese.
Yeah, Johnny Football all day for me, just so he could do so much and put pressure on that defense. Lamar Jackson or Cam Newton?
Man, both.
Nope.
I know.
Not the exercise.
I feel terrible just talking it out because I'm delaying the inevitable. I have to pick one. They're both all-time greats. I'll go Cam. I just think what he did in 2010 beyond compare.
Love Lamar, but listen, it's Cam.
Yeah, again, both can do great things. One weighs 240. I'm going to go with that guy.
That's a good point.
That's what I'm going to say at the end of the day. Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray?
And I believe the numbers are pretty darn close. Yep. Like guys that, of course, played right after each other. But I think if you look at the resumes, they're pretty close. I think there's more of a dual threat ability to Kyler Murray's game. I think the big play more a part of Kyler Murray's game as well. I'll take Kyler.
I'm gonna take Kyler because when you sit behind a guy like Baker, you're saying to yourself, can we take quarterback to the next level? And Kyler took it to the next level. Give me Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you guys there as well. Again, he took the absurd numbers of Baker Mayfield and did a little bit better than that. So I'm going to go Kyler Murray. And finally, this is interesting dynamic. Joe Burrow or Timothy Tebow?
Okay. Now, this is going to feel wrong to say because you're thinking about Tebow. Tebow, one of the all-time. I mean, there are a lot of people
talking about winning one game,
right? But there are a lot of people who feel that Tebow is the greatest player ever in college football. Cam's raising his hand, and that's an argument that can be made. But I think when you look at what Joe Burrow did, setting a single-season passer rating mark, 15-0, first ever 15-0 quarterback. Dude had 400 passing yards and 7 touchdowns in the first half of a playoff game. I just think we haven't seen anything statistically like Joe Burrow. If I got one game to win, I know that he can get me 400, 450 yards. Now, Tebow's going to do his thing. It's tough. I don't feel good about it, but I'm going Joe Burrow.
Wow. I mean, Tim Tebow, he is the GOAT. I mean, we ain't taking that away. But, BJ, the thing about it is, talk about with a guy like Joe Burrow, we're going to talk about the guys he had around him. Joe Burrow had wheels too. But he improvised. They don't got call runs for him. And you tell a guy, hey man, you just won the SEC championship. I'll get fitted for the next one. I want that natty. People kind of saw Tim Tebow coming. You didn't see Joe Burrow coming. I'm gonna go with Joe Burrow. Cool under pressure.
I'm gonna go with Tebow again to win me one game. I mean, for the accolades that BJ, it's not refutable. Cannot refute that. I think we've seen it all throughout his time as a quarterback. Tim Tebow could have a B game, a C game, and still get you a dub. Tim Tebow walked into a media room, which you are encouraged to not do. You say, we're not losing again. And they didn't. Get me one game, I'll take Tim Tebow at the end of the day. We've come back. We got more to come. We're going to give away a copy of Uncommon Unfinished, the Ben Troop story. When we come back, it's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, and BJ Bennett. We got another copy of Uncommon and Unfinished that we're going to give away, Ben. A great Christmas present,
Come
I
on.
might add, right in time for the Christmas and holiday season there as well. So we're going to give away a copy, good for the Gator and non-Gator fan. It's part of it is about Florida, but it's about so much more. So a chance for someone to win a copy here, Uncommon and Unfinished.
Absolutely. I mean, for those, don't let the color scheme, mess with your mind on the front. I mean, obviously, I had a choice between two colors, and it was orange and blue, and I picked them both. So anyway, no. But Uncommon and Unfinished, the Ben Troop story with BJ Bennett. Yes, the fourth caller to call in will get an autograph copy of Uncommon and Unfinished, the Ben Troop story with BJ Bennett. As Kevin Thomas so eloquently put, my book is finished.
It's finished.
I am not. So listen, but call 912-342-7184. That's 912-342-7184. The fourth caller will get a autographed copy of Uncommon and Unfinished, the Ben Troop story with BJ Bennett. Look, they flying off the shelves, and I appreciate all the support. Everybody's purchased the book already. I mean, it's a great story. I mean, I can't thank BJ enough for giving me the opportunity to be able to tell my story. But like I said, my story is not unique because it's mine. My story is unique because I was willing to tell it. So yeah. So 912-342-7184. The fourth caller will get a signed copy of my new book, Uncommon and Unfinished, the Ben Troop story with BJ Bennett. And if you're lucky, BJ will sign the book as well, because when people say who's BJ, yeah, that is BJ Bennett on the radio as well. But yes.
Yeah, so fourth caller right now, going to get a copy of that book. We'll give another one away next week ahead of the Christmas holidays, so look forward to that as well. We've still got another hour to go. We appreciate you riding along here with us on a Wednesday afternoon. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Good to have you back here. Final hour of 3 and Out here on this Wednesday. A lot to get to with the transfer portal going nuts. We'll look at some very prominent names who are in the transfer portal. We'll have Troop Talk as Ben sits down with Miami legend Kennard Lang this week, coming up in about 30 minutes here on the show. But joining us right off the bat here in the final hour, host of the Locked On SEC podcast and Sports Talk 790 in Houston, Chris Gordy joins us here on 3 and Out. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yo, what's going on, guys? Good to be here.
Hey, appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we now know the college football playoffs, Georgia and Michigan, Alabama and Cincinnati. Your initial thoughts on the setup there by the college football playoff committee? Did they get it right? And are we going to see some competitive semifinals?
Yeah, well, they lucked out. I mean, with all the talk of the last couple of weeks and what they were doing, and you got this team above that team, it played out perfectly. And I don't think many people have an issue outside of South Bend, Indiana, with how the final rankings went down. So they really lucked out because they really could have had a mutiny on their hands if Oklahoma State extends that ball out 6 more inches, gets the score, Oklahoma State's in, I think Cincinnati's out, and everybody's sitting here going, what does Cincinnati have to do to get in? They beat Notre Dame and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it played out for them. And look, we saw the numbers yesterday came out that the SEC championship game set records. It was the second highest rated game of the year across all networks. And then it was the highest rated championship game since 2018. So I got a feeling those folks at ESPN are really crossing their fingers and hoping Georgia takes care of business against Michigan and Alabama takes care of business against Cincinnati and gets a rematch, because everybody and their brother tuned in to see Alabama, Georgia round 1. I think they'd all be tuned in to see Alabama, Georgia round 2.
And Chris, Georgia did not look great in Atlanta, but now you have Michigan. Is this a matchup that on paper leans Georgia's way? How do you see this matchup in the Orange Bowl?
Well, I always defer to those guys in the desert, and they seem to know something. And when I saw the line came out, initially I saw one sportsbook at Georgia as an 8-point favorite, another one had a 6-point favorite. So yeah, Georgia's about a touchdown favorite. This is the best team that Jim Harbaugh has had since he's been at Michigan. It's finally starting to come together. It only took about 8 years, but it's finally got a competitive team. And this is a different Michigan team than we've seen in recent years. They run the ball really well, and McNamara's done a really good job at quarterback. That's been their big Achilles heel in recent years. So Georgia's going to have a good fight on their hands. That said, I think Saturday was more Georgia not getting exposed, but kind of letting their guard down a little bit. I mean, with this Georgia defense has been so dominant all year, they got manhandled by the Alabama offensive line. Even when they blitzed, Alabama was able to pick it up. Bryce Young was able to get the ball out of his hands quickly. So I thought Saturday was more a case of Georgia didn't bring their A game, because Alabama all season long, they've had their warts. We saw them, get sacked 7 times against Auburn and need a miracle final drive to send it to overtime. I saw them get held to 6 total rushing yards against LSU in a game that they probably should have lost. They survived the scare at Florida on the Swamp earlier in the year when Florida was running it down their throat. So Alabama's had their warts throughout the year. I thought Saturday they played their best game. The thing is, just because Alabama won on Saturday, that doesn't cure all your problems, right? Like, that doesn't mean, Alabama's just going to run the table now. They're going to win the title. No, they can absolutely resort back to the Alabama team we saw most of this season, which was a largely inconsistent team. So, yeah, I would say we're most likely going to get a rematch between Georgia and Alabama. And look, you know how hard it is to beat a team twice in the same season. So we'll see what happens when we get there. But I like Georgia to beat Michigan, and I like Alabama to beat Cincinnati. But everybody needs to slow down on this Alabama's going to rout Cincinnati talk, because this is a really good Cincinnati team that just 11 months ago I watched them go toe-to-toe with Georgia in the Peach Bowl, and Georgia ended up winning by a field goal. And that was the team that supposedly Georgia was way more talented than Cincinnati. So Alabama better not mess around. They'll find themselves in a dogfight with this.
Yeah, even sticking with that, Chris, when you think about the Cincinnati team, obviously the people are going to look past them, partly because of who they are, and other half because of who they're playing. But when you look at the recipe for beating Alabama, you got to be able to try to establish a run. You got to have a quarterback that can utilize his legs to get out of trouble, and you got to have a secondary that can match up with their receivers. When you look at Kobe Bryant, those guys on defense, they got 2 bookend quarterbacks that don't give up a lot in the air, especially on the outside. I know, Alabama's going to be picked to win, but how scary could this game potentially get if, Cincinnati can make it a 4-quarter game?
Well, when's the last time Alabama went into a game where they didn't have the edge and corner play? Like, the other team has better corners than Alabama does. It's pretty crazy. But, no, look, Bryce Young has been so good all year. He has been magical. Him and then Will Anderson on the defense, both those guys. You take either of those guys off this team, this Alabama team, this is a 3-loss Alabama team. I mean, those two guys have meant that much to this team. So, you know, Bryce Young's got to bring it, and obviously Will Anderson needs to be that disruptor and that edge rusher that can help lapse the backfield, set the edge, shut down the run, get back, get in the backfield, hit the opposing quarterback and all that. But, no, this is a Cincinnati team that I feel like is going to come into this game with nothing to lose. They're going to come in and hear all the hubbub. Yeah, it's Alabama, reigning national champs, Nick Saban, we're 2 touchdown underdogs. They're going to hear all that, and Luke Fickell's going to go, look, we got nothing to lose. Everybody's picking us to lose this. We don't have a chance, guys. I would think they leave it all out on the field. Trick plays, fake punts, whatever it takes to keep the ball in their offense's hands, to keep the ball away from Bryce Young. I think they're going to do it. So, yeah, I'm with you, Ben. If I'm Cincinnati, I leave it all out there and say, look, nobody believes in us. Let's go out there and do what we can do.
Chris Gordy, the Locked On SEC podcast, joining us. Will Anderson, speaking of him, not a Heisman finalist. Now, I think everybody expects Bryce Young is going to win that thing, but a lot of talk about Anderson not getting the invite, Hutchinson getting the invite, and Anderson's got way better numbers. What kind of you make of that situation?
Yeah, it's silly. I mean, I think the Heisman Trust at the end of the day didn't want to have 2 guys from the same school, which is kind of crazy because we've seen it happen before. I mean, we saw even the USC days, Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush both went to the Heisman ceremony. I mean, it's not uncommon to have 2 guys from the same school. So, I think that's ultimately what they wanted to do. But go look at the numbers. It's crazy. And no disrespect to Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, he's had a great year for Michigan, but he's also got a beast on the other side of his line in Ojobo, who opened up a lot of, he never got double teamed because he's got a stud on the other side of him. With Will Anderson fought through double teams all year. Teams game planned around him, and he still got his. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, it's not close on tackles. Will Anderson's got way more tackles. And then, of course, the sack totals. Will Anderson leads the country in sacks. So I thought it was a little bit of a crime. I mean, I thought, this is that one year where it's kind of unique, where I thought both Will Anderson and Bryce Young both should have gotten invites. But ultimately, I think a lot of people said, well, Bryce Young's going to get the contingent of Bama votes anyway, and he's the favorite to win it. So let's just let Bryce go, and he'll be the Heisman Trophy winner. But, yeah, it's a little bit of a joke when you look at the numbers and you look at it and wonder why Will Anderson wasn't at least invited.
Chris, LSU starting quarterback Max Johnson enters the transfer portal. What type of player is he, and where do you think he might be a good fit?
So the early returns, at least from people I've talked to, was that there was certainly a possibility of Florida State on the table just because of their dad's legacy. Brad Johnson played there. But here's the unique situation. Here's why Max entered the transfer portal yesterday, because a lot of people were saying, well, why wouldn't he just wait until the bowl game? Go play the bowl game and then enter the transfer portal. His brother, Jake, or rather Jack, no, Jake. I keep mixing up. Jake Johnson, not Jack Johnson, the music guy. Jake Johnson is the #1 tight end recruit in the country. He was set to sign with LSU next week. He decommitted last night at the exact same time that Max Johnson entered the transfer portal. So basically what they're telling everybody is, we are a package deal. Whoever wants to sign my brother as the #1 tight end in the country will get me, Max Johnson, as a quarterback. So I'm sure they're getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, and a lot of visits from teams across the country, because those are 2 very good players that you would like to have. I just wonder what the conversation was with Brian Kelly. And I think it went something like this. I think Brian Kelly said, look, Max, it's going to be an open competition next year. Nothing is guaranteed. I think Max Johnson kind of maybe took offense to that, saying, look, I've played my butt off the last handful of games last year. Miles Brennan gets hurt in the preseason. I established myself as the guy this whole season. Thought I played well, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Whatever the conversation was with Brian Kelly said, look, I'm new here. I'm not committing to anybody. It's an open competition everywhere. So that's why I think ultimately he entered the portal. But he's a good player. I mean, I think he can go somewhere and win. He's not going to be Joe Burrow-esque or anything like that level, but he's a gamer, man. He's a guy who takes hits, got a little bit of running ability. The problem was he was inconsistent at times with LSU this year. Go back and watch the Bama film, man. He makes 1 or 2 of those open throws to receivers. LSU beats Alabama this year. He just missed it. So wherever he goes, I hope he gets with somebody who can coach him up and is a good quarterback guru, because I think Max Johnson can take his game to the next level. But wherever he goes, it sounds like it's going to be a package deal with his brother, the tight end.
And Chris, I mean, even sticking with Brian Kelly, I mean, when you think about a guy who, you obviously it's been well documented how he left Notre Dame to be the next head coach at LSU. I mean, it's going around him, his I don't know if I call it a Creole accent. I mean, I've been to Houston, I've trained in New Orleans. I mean, how do you rate Brian Kelly's accent? And when he was talking to the Johnson brothers, I mean, when you think about those guys, I mean, did they get the Brian Kelly that's from Massachusetts, or did they get the Brian Kelly that now lives in New Orleans?
Look, let me just tell you guys, I'm an LSU grad, but I call it like I see it. I'm fair. I criticize when I need to criticize. But I'll tell you this, for those people in South Louisiana right now, with Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to come to LSU, a guy who wins double-digit games just about every year, they don't give a damn what he sounds like. He can talk in Creole. He can talk in Spanish. He can talk in whatever accent, language, whatever he wants. All he's got to do is win there. So I know he got criticized by some people around the country. The more and more I went back and watched it, I think it was different because he was speaking in an auditorium on a speaker to the folks at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center, and you're talking to 1,500, 2,000 people, whatever, on a microphone. I think your voice maybe gets a little bit amplified and you talk a little bit different. But yeah, he can speak in any accent he wants as long as he wins there. But it was funny. It made the rounds, and I'll tell you this though, that I've been in New York for a week, and just hanging around in New York a week, suddenly I start to talk like this. You guys know where the Subway is? I think Brian Kelly hanging around with the Cajuns for a full 24-hour period started to rub off on him, and he said, "Hey, where's my family? Where we go?"
Chris Gordy, Locked on the SEC podcast, joining us. Chris, finally, you look at just the earlier bump in the coaching carousel, the transfer portal. Is this something we're going to just continue to see more of with that early signing period, where it used to be if you make it to Thanksgiving, then you change coaches? Now it's you may not make it to November, and guys are jumping out for a number of reasons. I just don't like my playing time. I'm just done. How do you keep a roster intact year to year anymore, seemingly with the transfer portal and just a continuous record number of guys seemingly by the hour jumping in that thing?
Well, they're going to have to rein it back. I mean, I hate to say it, but you're going to have to get back to the rule of, if you transfer, you sit out a year. I know a lot of people don't think it's fair, but, look, we saw guys can find, if you have a legitimate reason why you want to leave, you want to be closer to home. You had a death in the family. Justin Fields was able to leave Georgia and go to Ohio State and not sit out. I mean, if you have a legitimate enough reason, I think the NCAA can find a way to give you the waiver. But you just can't have it like it is now. It can't be the Wild Wild West where, oh, man, this guy jumped me on the depth chart, so I'm jumping into the transfer portal. And I'm all for player empowerment and players being able to choose where they want to go. But I also believe a little bit in, look, you choose a school because you chose the school. You don't choose a school because of the head coach. I think Eric Gilbert, was an example of that. Oh, LSU won the championship, so let me go commit to them. No, man, go choose LSU because you like the facilities. You like Death Valley. You like the fans in Baton Rouge. Like, we need to get back to having kids pick schools and not coaches and systems. And I know it's hard to say, especially with some of these quarterbacks who, want to go play for a certain coach because they like their style of offense and all that. But back in the day, I know Ben Troop was sold on the Steve Spurriers and all that. But I guarantee you, he loved the Swamp when he saw that orange and blue and said, I want to go play there. So we just got to get back to some of these kids being sold and wanting to go play for the school rather than who's there, what the competition looks like.
Chris Gordy, Locked on SEC podcast, joining us here on 3 and Out. Chris, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Definitely, guys. Anytime.
Appreciate it. And he joins us here on the on 3 and Out. As again, we talked a lot of college football with him, and Ben was Florida Gator in all kinds of weather, right? It doesn't matter.
No, I would have loved to be one, but Chris got to understand this. I mean, the thing that got me at Florida is the thing that's a selling point now at these schools. The face of the school is the coach. I mean, coaches are synonymous with these schools. Georgia is Georgia, but when Kirby is doing what he's doing, it makes him more attractive. And the whole thing about it is we associate all kind of things with faces. I mean, if I say the Lakers, you're gonna say LeBron, and Kobe was there, Shaq. That's just how we do. And the thing is, people say, well, commit to a scheme. Commit to a scheme, not a coach. Well, the scheme is what I'm going to play for. I want to be in the scheme at the school, but the coach is the one sitting in my living room. So for those be thinking that, hey man, commit to a school. Coaches ain't committing to schools. Coaches committing to that money. Because if the money goes up, the coach leaves. So you telling me to do something you ain't asking the coach to do.
I agree. I agree. I think you look at it, and he said, hey, maybe there's a way I rein it back. I don't know that there's a way you can at this point. I think, look, once you open the door and said, hey, you can free transfer, it's going to happen. Guys are going to use it, right? I mean, I think we've seen guys who are good players at school say, you know what? Nope, I'm out. I mean, it's kind of seemingly with no reason to transfer. Say, nope, I'm just going to change. And to me, I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle in any way, shape, or form in college football.
No, I think this is something that's a new reality, and players. Ben, we were talking about this earlier. What, a generation ago, you had to make a list of schools, your coaches had to approve it,
Yep.
and that wasn't fair. That was restrictive, and that was a set of circumstances that applied specifically to student athletes and not anybody else. You know, I think there are pluses, there are minuses to the transfer portal, but at the end of the day, I think it makes sense for these student athletes to have autonomy over their future.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say, Kevin, it's something you said. You know what the transfer portal is? That's reality. See, a lot of times we jump into the transfer portal because I was something. I don't mean I is anymore. I was a big-time recruit. Now I got to deal with the current recruiting classes and hope that I can get to one of these schools, because we see about the guys like the Jermaine Johnsons of the world that make it, that leave Georgia, go to Florida State and ACC defensive player. That is not the barometer. That is the exception. How many guys go into the portal never to be seen from, heard from again? Hey, man, it's your choice. But just know, once you leave your school, you might not have another school, to call home.
And we'll say earlier today, seems like by the hour you just hit refresh on your phone, and there's a couple more guys said, nope, I'm out, going somewhere else to continue playing college football. We've got much more to come here on 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Speaking of that transfer portal, a lot of big time names in that portal. Where might they land? We'll get to that next year on 3 and Out. Well, we are fired up off the air on a Wednesday talking about transfer portals.
I mean, I didn't even see Ben. Ben walked out.
Yeah, Ben was like, enough about the
Were
transfer
you on a
portal.
private phone call?
No,
Were you on a personal phone call?
no.
Ben
So
just-
hold on. So is it so private? No, personal.
I
no.
was asking.
No,
Ben just didn't want to talk about the transfer
no,
portal.
no, no.
But no.
I always want to talk about the transfer portal, but Kevin said. I mean, Kevin was talking about you want security, you want freedom, you got to pick. BJ wants to make sure that these coaches are under the same scrutiny the players are. You're gonna have to find a healthy medium, because it's funny that you are putting more scrutiny on 18 to 24-year-olds than you're putting on grown men who were just up there talking about commitment and standards
Sure.
and what we're trying to build here. And 2 years later, gone, done, moved on, and they have to pay me to leave. I guess you get paid if you get fired, not if you resign. So
That's
they make
right.
sure they get fired.
Go ahead and fire me real quick. We got a couple of things I want to get to here with the transfer portal, because there are a lot of big names in the transfer portal. Where do you see these guys actually landing? Because as Ben said, a lot of guys go in the transfer portal. Some of them never come out. But there are guys that know, I go in the transfer portal. I can go a lot of places. I have options. People will be ringing my phone to try to get me. I won't have to be calling coaches say, hey, remember, I'm in the transfer portal. What about Miles Brennan, LSU? Where do you think he ends up at the end of the day?
Yeah, and I mean, who knows where they get? I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head about fits that could make sense. And one of the schools that jumps off the page at me when I just look across the landscape of college football is Virginia Tech. You know, Virginia Tech, you got a new coach coming in with Brent Pry. You're talking about probably resetting some things offensively. I think they've had a couple of quarterbacks transfer, including Hendon Hooker last year. You probably want a veteran quarterback if you're a new coach coming in. And if you can get a guy that started in the SEC, I believe will be a fifth-year senior, he can help bring along some other guys. I think it might be interesting to see Miles Brennan at an ACC school like Virginia Tech.
I mean, BJ, I'll stay in the ACC. I'll give you two more schools. What about Virginia? What about Duke? I think when you talk about
North Carolina, even, yeah.
when you talk about coaches that want to have a guy that and go out there and sling it around, and he has 1 year left to go out there and prove. It's one thing knowing that all I got is 1 year left. So I'll take Virginia Tech, Duke, even North Carolina, because you want to, the day and age, Kevin, of these wide open offense, you want to have a guy that can get these playmakers the ball.
Yeah, and again, I think it's about fit with some of these guys. Zach Evans, another one, TCU, a 5-star recruit that went to the Horned Frogs there. He is in the transfer portal. Where's he? I mean, again, 5-star running backs can probably fit anywhere they want to, but where's the kind you think best fit for him?
And I think there are some reports that maybe Tennessee might be one of the potential landing spots, and you're thinking about a program that you already have your go-to quarterback. Hendon Hooker is going to be the guy, but if you could add that balance and have kind of that 50-50 run pass option, I think Zach Evans would give you that. He's a guy that I believe Tennessee was involved with his recruitment coming out of high school. So some reports there, I think that would make sense.
What about a Kentucky team? Kentucky's going to run the football. They're going to make a value add to run the football. And like you said, Kevin, when you got 5 stars next to your name, you're a running back. Listen, coach, all I need is 15 touches a game. What can he do with 15 touches a game, especially when he's playing motivated football? Give me Kentucky.
And speaking of that, Jahmyr Gibbs, Georgia Tech, another guy, top running back, could go probably anywhere he wants to go. Where's the best fit for him? From Dalton, kind of North Georgia. Some people have said Tennessee is not that far from Dalton. If you want to stay close to home, where would be a fit for him?
Well, you mentioned it. When you're a guy like Gibbs, I mean, anywhere you go, I think you can be an offensive focal point right away. I mean, I'm thinking of maybe a Florida. I mean, Florida's had some really good running backs, but if you get Gibbs in there, could he be kind of that every down back for you and maybe give you the special teams ability, the dual threat ability, receiving?
And I think for him, you're talking about one season. I mean, he was listed as a freshman because he got the extra year. So technically, wherever he goes, he could play for 3 more years. But I think you're really, for him, 3 years out of high school, talking one more season.
And you look at Billy Napier when he was at Louisiana, they ran the heck out of the football. I mean, you're thinking about guys like Trey Regis and guys that have gone on to the National Football League. So I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to have his pick of schools, but I think somewhere like Florida would make sense.
Billy Napier, don't make this hard. Come on, man. I mean, listen, go all in on this guy, because we all know when it comes to new coaches, outside of the new coaching schemes, I mean, a new regime, you want to be able to show that you can go out there and get a guy like a Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he was unhappy because he wasn't getting the touches. I think it has less to do with the team he was on and more to do with the fact he wasn't getting utilized. I do agree. BJ, we talk about, I mean, we are the transfer portal king when you talk about the running backs coming in, guys from Clemson, guys from, Miami, Lindor and those guys. You get a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in, you tell him we're going to run the football. I think he'll be a very happy customer because he's at a premier school in a big-time conference and he gets to go out there and showcase his talent.
All right, a lot of quarterbacks in there as well. Quinn Ewers, Ohio State. People go, Quinn Ewers, he was I don't know how to phrase it. He would have been the number one quarterback coming out this year, but got out of high school a year early so he could sign an NIL deal to not play at Ohio State, and now he's in the transfer portal. I think the young man is from Texas.
And for a long period of time, he was committed to Texas during the recruiting process, and that's obviously been a team that's been talked about. I think one of the front runners listed publicly is Texas. I think Texas Tech has been in there as well. And look, if you go to Texas, I know he probably looked at the future at Ohio State and thought, yeah, CJ Stroud's a Heisman finalist.
Yeah.
He's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
He's going to be here for a while. You go to Texas. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a recruiting expert, but isn't Arch Manning considering Texas as one of his leading schools? I mean, you go to Texas Tech. They have a great tradition of throwing the football. You think about Graham Harrell and B.J. Simmons and Pat Mahomes and all the. I mean, I think you could go out there and kind of continue that tradition. So may end up going back to Texas. That's where he was committed to, but I think it'd make a lot of sense to go to a place like Tech.
Yeah, but I think what happens is now, BJ, the one thing he's shown is he's a brand that want to be attached to a bigger brand. I don't know if Texas Tech does that for him. Yes, he gets to get on the field, but no one really cares about what goes on at Texas Tech. Steve Sarkisian, I mean, obviously didn't have the year he wanted his first year, but when you give Sarkisian the quarterback and they're going to be able to get guys in there, I think when you look at the running game, he got a chance to go in his home state, the biggest brand in the state. Watch out for them Longhorns to be able to snatch him up.
I think you're right, Ben. You leave high school early so you can sign an NIL deal. You're not going to Texas Tech. I just cannot see that happening. Dillon Gabriel, Central Florida. He was injured most of the year there for Central Florida. He is in the transfer portal. Might say a Florida State be interested in getting another Central Florida transfer?
Well, it looks like a lot of reports out there that maybe Ole Miss is where Dillon Gabriel is going. And you think you have Lane Kiffin now. Ole Miss just lost their offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, to Oklahoma, but they're still going to spread you out. They're still going to throw the football. That's what Lane Kiffin does. And, of course, Matt Corral going to the NFL draft. That seems to be a report that's out there, and I think that's one that logically you could understand. Okay, you're at Central Florida. You were fantastic. You have an opportunity at an SEC school to step in, play for a quarterback guru right away.
That's a no-brainer, BJ. I mean, listen, 2020 Dillon Gabriel, I mean, he went out there, was able to go out there and get it done, but didn't have the year he wanted to in 2021. But the thing is, once again, brands, and it's about schemes. You're not going to get a better scheme for his skill set than an Ole Miss. So I can see Ole Miss jumping in, but once again, he's going to be a guy, dual threat that can put it in the air. I think Ole Miss is going to suit him the best. SEC, big-time coach Lane Kiffin, it should work because make no mistake about it, Lane Kiffin knew about this kid. When he was at FAU.
Yeah, Max Johnson. We just kind of talked about that last segment. Son of Brad Johnson, who played at Florida State. Might that be, and how much of it could be tied to where his brother goes, but might that be a new landing spot for that LSU quarterback?
Potentially, and you're talking about a guy that had 24 touchdowns, 7 picks, 3,000 yards, I think, in the SEC this year, so did a really good job. I think because where his father played quarterback, I think that's the school that immediately comes to mind, FSU.
I think he has to. I think at this point, I think it makes it very dynamic when you get him and his brother. But look, most guys want to check. Most guys want to follow to fall behind their father, follow to their father's footsteps. But I will say this: he goes to Florida State. BJ, I know they got a young man there right now, Jordan Travis. Life is not going to be easy for him to just get a starting job. But as we all know, you want a guy that can push the ball down the field. Mac Johnson's built for the moment.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler, another quarterback, Oklahoma. Does he follow Lincoln Riley, who essentially benched him this season when things went a little off track?
I think that would surprise me, but there are some rumors of him going to UCLA. Some reports online. And isn't that what Troy Aikman did? Didn't he start out at Oklahoma?
Yeah.
And go to UCLA? So maybe not. No, you're saying no?
I'm thinking maybe I got him confused.
That's what my brain's telling me.
With a John Elway or something.
I may be wrong, but Cam, you look it up. I think Troy Aikman started out at Oklahoma, transferred to UCLA. We'll see if could be
maybe
totally
I'm confused.
off base.
John Elway was at Stanford.
But I've seen some reports being UCLA.
Spencer Rattler is from Pac-12 country. I think he's from Arizona. He will be going to either Arizona State or UCLA. I think kind of different than most. He's kind of want to prove that he can go out there and get it done at a big time school, but kind of want to it's more reputation with him now, Kevin and BJ, because didn't have the best reputation with his teammates. But yes, I think Chip Kelly might get a big one in Spencer Rattler.
And quickly, Eli Ricks, LSU. A lot of talk about where he could go big time corner Where's the best fit for
I
Eli
mean,
Ricks?
could the dogs be involved here? You went out and got Darion Kendrick. He's been great for you. You assume Kendrick's going to the National Football League. I know Alabama's been rumored as well, but I think maybe Georgia might be a spot.
If Alabama, Georgia calling your phone, everybody else going to have to be, and they're going to have to wait around until he says yes to one of them. He will not get to his third option. I see him either being in crimson or being in red and black.
That's a quick look at some big names there in the transfer portal and where they might be the best fit. And again, those are some of the big names. A lot of guys filling up that transfer portal looking for places to play in 2022. We'll come back. We'll have Troop Talk. Ben sits down with Miami legend Kedard Lang here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Let no one come back alive.
Not that kind of troop. This kind.
And being true, this is Troop Talk. Every week I sit down with one of the latest and greatest among us. And when you think about all things going on in college football, the college football world was looking down on the U. That is the University of Miami. For those of you who don't know, and my next guest is one of the ones that, really made the U what it is. Former University of Miami defensive end, first-round draft pick in the 97 draft by the Washington Redskins. Also played for the Cleveland Browns, the Denver Broncos. The great Kennard Lang. What's going on with you there, Kennard?
Not much, man. She got no complaints. She just enjoying this nice little Florida weather.
Now, Kennard, your Hurricanes made a big hire. Mario Cristobal being a guy that played there, understand what it is, not just to win there, but to recruit there. What are your thoughts on Mario Cristobal, and do you think he's one of the guys to get you guys back to the promised land?
Oh man, absolutely. I mean, I could really say about Mario, like he was a guy that solidified, that really knew what Miami's about. He has 2 national championship rings, and actually when I was there, he was one of the strength conditioning coaches that was with me that was working me out. So we kind of grew like a little bit of a personal relationship, and you really knew his mindset and his demeanor on how stuff go. And a lot of our stuff really tied in hand to hand, so our relationship was fine. And watching his maturation, watching him mature during these times as far as coaching, starting up in Miami like 2006, and having a different sense of different areas, and going to Alabama, then watching stuff he did in Oregon, his track record proves it. So coming back home to where it all began, I know he's happy and ecstatic. I know he's gonna have full support from past alumni like myself, like going all the way down. I mean, you can go back all the way to like the Mel Bratton, you go to Lonzo Highsmith, Tolbert Baines. You can go back to those guys where I know, hey, they're gonna have support for him, and we wish him nothing but sweet success.
Talking with Kennard Lang, former defensive end for the University of Miami, also first-round draft pick for the then Washington Redskins, played for the Cleveland Browns, Denver Broncos. Talking with him about his Canes. And the thing about the University of Miami, Kennard, I know playing against you guys, but understanding the history, it's different. I know everybody says that, right? Everybody says, oh, it's different coaching. It's different coaching there. When I think about alumni support, I don't know how many games you guys go to, but that first game of the year, I was at Florida versus Miami, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You guys got alumni support like nobody's been. College Football Hall of Fame, check. NFL Hall of Fame, check. One of the greatest players ever come through the league. Talk about how Mario Cristobal being one of you guys makes it easy for you guys not only to get back on campus, but to let them know, hey, man, whatever you need from us, we got you.
I mean, it makes it so much easier, especially communication. I mean, you know what it is? Because that guy right there, y'all went through 2 days together. He know how you bleed, you know how he bleed. You know what I mean? And it's just that bond, that relationship, that's the support that we have. I mean, I give you a prime example. I remember I was there. We had summer workout. This is like my freshman year. Michael Irvin pulled up to the practice facility. He pulled his Land Rover up to the field turf. He opened it up. He put on his cleats with no socks. He put on his practice girdle, no shirt, and went out there and did 7-on-7 with us. Like also, Russell Maryland was another guy who used to do that. He used to come back out there to work out. So it's that bond of the. That's why we get along so well, because past regime, they all meet together with the young ones and try to show them like this house about what it's about. It's not necessarily about like this. We're gonna talk trash while we kicking your butt. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is this, from our actions and how we play in our presence is our swag that's gonna intimidate you. You know what I mean? So like I think if I'm correct, I know Mario came in, if I'm correct, I might have heard it wrong, that all this glitz and glamour, all that Christmas tree stuff is gonna be gone. Which for me, I know a lot of older guys, we do one day gone, because it come back down to it. It's all about tackling, hitting it, and being physical. Let your reputation precede you. Be the intimidation, not you throwing up a dang turnover chain and some rings on the sideline.
So we all in one accord on that.
Talking with Kennard Lane, former defensive end for the University of Miami, also was a first-round draft pick in '97. About the then Washington Redskins, played with the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos. Ed Reed, he's on campus, and when Ed Reed first got hired, he was like, "Look, when I'm talking to these parents, I'm telling them, look, it's not going to be what you guys thought it was. I understand that I'm a quote under Manny Diaz, but I am the you. So when I'm walking into these living rooms, these young men, the reason why they don't know who I am, that's their fault. Because when you think about one of the greatest, if not the greatest safety to ever touch a football, and that's college or pro, and I played against Sean Taylor, may he rest in peace. Talk about that aspect, Kennard, like you mentioned. It's like, look, man, the University of Miami, y'all got 30 for 30s for three and four different coaches. Y'all been doing it for so long. You talk about Michael Irvin, you talk about Edgerrin James, Mr. going from gold teeth to a gold jacket. If it can be done, it has been done by y'all. Talk about having a guy like Ed Reed who's going to let these young guys know we trying to get back to the standard. We don't need the gimmicks.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, it's funny you said that about what Ed said about if you don't know me, that's your fault. Because I remember when I got there, we had our defensive line room. Everybody who went to NFL, they pictures on the defensive line room, and I knew everybody who wore my number 96. It was Stubbs, it was Stubbs, it was Cortez Kennedy, it was Damian Blatherwood. So I remember I remember those guys before me who wore my number, and that was my deal. Like, okay, how am I going to make 96 better than all those? You know what I mean? Which is a very tall task. A couple of guys I said they Hall of Famers and everything, but it's and appreciating the guys that came before you that have helped you embrace the pride what it is to be a Hurricane. And what Ed is talking about is the truth. You know, hey, we gonna come with the work. It's not all this little glitz and glamour. We gotta put in that grind and that work to get it done. And speaking of that, that's like Edgerrin James. Edgerrin James came in my last year there, his true freshman year. Edgerrin James did not play, I think, until week 4 or week 5 of his true freshman year. That the running back got hurt. But prior to that, scout team, Edgerrin James treated that like it's game day. I mean, like it was literally, it was like that. And like he all the stuff he did, and he's like, man, he's gonna be pretty good. And lo and behold, the first game Edgerrin James played, he had like 4 catches for 80 yards and 9 rushes for 80 yards for like 3 touchdowns against Temple. He's like, man. But the thing about that though, he came in and embraced the process. He's not coming in and saying, oh, look at me. He came in there and grinding and got that work done. And you know what? I'm not saying a lot of guys didn't, but you know, speaking of him, you know, gold teeth to gold jacket, he's one of those guys that did that. He grind. He worked. He might be one of those guys that work out 5 o'clock in the morning when you start at 7. His workout is done before you even get started. But that's just how it was around there. The competition. The most important being, I say, is the accountability. I can say I remember the year we went to the national championship game, we had a number 1 defense in the country. Defensive end was Kenny Holmes, first round, the New York Giants. Defensive tackle, Warren Sapp, first round to the Bucks. Pat Riley, he blew his knee out week 7. He still went first pick, second round to the Bears. Then I went first round to the Redskins. Now, mind you, I know the linebacker is Ray Lewis, okay? So now, reason why I say that is this. We get in the huddle, it's all about accountability. Everybody there's Indian. There is no Chiefs. You feel me? So, in saying that's the mindset and the demeanor you got to come in. That's that Hurricane demeanor. I'm coming in to grind. You know, the leadership role fall in. I'm not here for it. I'm here to be the best man I can be, the best player I can be, and most importantly, be the best Hurricane I can be. And I think that's what Ed is trying to apply to guys. Hey, we come here to work and grind to be a Hurricane. Work here to be the best person you can be, and I believe that's what Ed is trying to tell the kids. Most important, try to the family.
Kennard Lang, former defensive end for the University of Miami Hurricanes, first round draft pick in 1997 by the then Washington Redskins. Also played with the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos. Kennard, before I let you out of here, man, I mean, the one thing I know about the U is people talk about tradition. But when you talk about the you guys got a tradition that's hard to understand. I remember when Warren Sapp And Michael Irvin used to work for NFL Network. They used to stick them hands together, say, it's a you thing. You wouldn't understand. To those select few of people who don't know what the U is, how would Kennard Lang sum it up to the naysayers or to the ones who heard about it and don't know about it? What does the U mean to Kennard?
What the U mean to me? It's my heart. It's my everything. If it wasn't for the U, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Now, for you to understand it, you got to go through it. Big dog. That's all I can say.
Hey, listen, the man. A few words, dropping them gems. Kennard, man, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I got a quick story before I let you out of here. I got a chance to go to the rookie premiere in 2004. I'm out there with Kellen Winslow. I said, K2, man, how's Cleveland, man? He said, boy, Kennard Lang, that boy taking it easy on me. I thank God I went to the U because it would have got ugly for me in practice. But us both representing the U, he said he used to take it easy on him, man. I appreciate y'all vets taking it easy on us rookies back in the day.
Hey, like they probably did. I took it easy on by letting them know that I'm coming. I said, big dog, hey, I'm coming now. Just let you know I'm coming. Most guys, I had to let them know they had to feel for themselves. I treated every play like the last play, but shoot. But that dude, so when he first got there, hey, man, he was a rare breed, man. It's very unfortunate, the stuff that he went through. But that boy right there, he's a dime a dozen.
2005, I'm with the Titans my second year. We come up there to play you guys. I'm hurt that year. It was Aaron Kinney and Bo Scaife. They came back. They was out there on Old Lake Erie, that wind coming off Old Lake Erie. I said, Bo Scaife, man, how was old Kennard Lang? He said, that's a grown man right there, boy. He said, he put his hands on you, but you're going to go where he wants you to go. He said, I was a steering wheel and he was a steer, and I just went where he went. I said, what happened to you? He said, the game was over. I got back on the plane. Hey, Kennard, man, listen, we're going to have to do this more often, man. Keep doing what you're doing, being a high school coach now, man. We're going to get to talk about your foundation next time. I know you're doing great things, man, in Central Florida, man. But listen, man, I appreciate you coming on, man, and taking the time.
Hey, no problem at all. Hey, I'm always open and available for you, man, big dog. Just give me a shout. And I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate it.
It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. If you missed any portion of today's show, ESPNCoastal.com, Apple Podcasts, our YouTube page, you get an archive version of 3 and Out. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow, a Thursday edition all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Conversation continues at Pigskin Radio on Twitter.